There are some times in the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series when things take a dramatic turn that no one could ever expect it. Today, we're going to have one of them. 4 of the best drivers in the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series will not be making the trip to downtown Indiana, to Speedway, to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway itself. That means that Fulvio Barrazzini will be starting this race from the pole position, along with a pro driver, Hugh Abe, alongside him in row number 1. You've got the likes of Luke McLean, Mo Garfield, Yudan Arumi starting this race in the top 5. However, the important thing is this. For the first time this season, someone other than Gregor Hutu or Hugo Luis is going to win an iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series race, and on a track where anything can happen. And we've known that since 1911 when the first Indy 500 was held. This race could really be one of the most exciting we have ever seen in World Championship Grand Prix Series history. Good afternoon everyone, Will Vincent along with Dan Blake and Ben Rothberg for your 11th round of the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series from the Brickyard itself, Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And Ben, I'm going to come to you first. That front row, Fulvio Barrazzini, Hugh Abe, what a performance by both of those drivers.
Yeah, tell me about it. Like, it's great to be back in the commentary box with you guys tonight. I've been a bit absent, sorry guys. But yeah, I'll tell you what, Hugh Abe, like, he's killing it. Honestly, I've personally never heard of him. I know he was qualified for the Pro Series, but that's an incredible performance. Even if the likes of Gregor Hutu, Hugo Louis, those guys were here, he still would have been within the top 6. That's a great effort.
So if we have a look at the championship standings, it was Gregor Hutu who led the way coming into this race, not racing here today. Hugo Luis, he was just under 100 points behind, not racing in this race. Atsi Kirchhoff, not racing this race. He was 3rd in the championship. Jake Sturdios in the 4th position will have to start this race from pit road due to an Article 13.1 violation for him and a couple of the other IronX Racing drivers. The guy in 5th position, Fulvio Barrazzini, has got a chance to push himself closer to those top 4 drivers here today. Then you've got Luke McLean, who sat in the 8th position, for example. Got a good chance to try and leapfrog Martin Patilla and Martin Kroenke. The likes of Stephen Michaels, Ika Harpala, they could really benefit here today. And don't forget Mr. Strategy himself, Max Delorco. We're going to step aside for just a moment. We're going to give you a little bit of an introduction to this racetrack. It's called the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We'll be right back. The Indianapolis Motor Speedway, built in the early 1900s and held the first Indianapolis Motor Speedway in 1911. It's a track that the drivers have known over the years to always throw up a curveball, and it's a track where it will never, ever tell you its secrets. The likes of USAC's Best have competed there over time. In 1994, NASCAR made its first trip to the Speedway, and then in 2000, the Formula 1 cars came on the newly built infield section, and they raced there from 2000 through to 2006. Who can forget in 2005 when just 6 drivers actually started the race due to the issues between Michelin and Bridgestone? And that's one of those things that those drivers will bear in mind. This track is a real tyre eater. As we start looking at the racetrack, the cars swarm down underneath the shadows, past the yard of bricks, before they make that long run down into turn number 1. It is a corner where you can really brake as late as you humanly possibly can, but be careful about those cones on the inside of turn number 1. You really have to make sure that you don't cut them, otherwise you're going to get yourself a huge slowdown penalty. Turn 2, a left-hand flick before you move that car to the right-hand side of the racetrack for turn number 3. It's a sweeping right-hander. Get on the gas just a little bit and then brake for turn number 4, a 90-degree right-hander. Turn number 5 is a much more shallow right-hander. You just flick that car to the right-hand side, got yourself get car back to the right-hand side before turn number 6, a long 180-degree left-hander, where the car can really step out from you if you don't use that curb, use that track to full advantage. Turn number 7, come out of there, you're moving yourself then down the back straightaway. This is the Holman George straightaway, and then you'll work yourself now down underneath the bridge before you come down into turn number 8. It's a left-hander who's reprofiled for MotoGP, which immediately leads into the right-hander for turn number 9. You're really into the complex now. Flick it left once again for turn number 10 before that final right-hander before you get back onto the oval. Turn number 11. You need to get yourself good momentum through here, because from now on, you're going to be flat out all the way past the start-finish line. You should work yourself, you know, on the apron, now onto the banking, and you're going to be flat-footed all the way through turn number 13. This is the majestic oval itself. They run in the opposite direction to what IndyCar and NASCAR does. They'll come underneath the shadows one more time, and then they'll come past the yard of bricks. This really is a racetrack that these drivers love. It's a track which has so much memory, and today, in the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series, someone, after 73 laps, is going to be victorious. Who it is, we don't just know yet. So welcome back to pre-race coverage for the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series from Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Ben Rothberg, Dan Blake alongside of myself, Will Vincent, as we continue our pre-race coverage. Dan, today's race is going to be one for the ages. Yes, we haven't got the big 4 hitters, but what we do know is simple. We don't know who's going to win here today. You've got Barrizzini, who's been a consistent top 5 finisher. You have Abe in his last performance as a pro driver, just did a sterling job. Then you have Luke McLean as well, just waiting. And we know how good Team Redline can be in this series.
That's the beauty of it, Will. It's going to be so unpredictable today. We probably will miss those for the top 4, but it's a window of opportunity for new winners, also for people to get up to where they need to be, because the top 25 as well, there'll be some positions to be gained there.
And Ben, as far as the championship's concerned, there's going to be a lot of movers and shakers. We talked about this in the F1 WCS show a little bit earlier on, in the fact that, you know, there are some guys sat outside the top 25 who today can get some big points, move themselves back into a locked position for the 2014 championship.
That's exactly right, and now we're coming to the back end of the season. Sorry, we're going to have these guys trying to scramble for those top 25 positions to guarantee themselves a spot for next year, that they don't have to qualify again in the Pro Series. This one is going to be a changing race. There's those guys like Ben Cornett, who we know, I believe, actually has not qualified, if someone can correct me.
He did one lap, 1.8, but he was way down the field in about 30th position.
He's one of those guys who are 10, 15 points outside of the top 25. So he's going to be one of those guys who's going to be looking for a high points result in these races, where especially the guys who are absent from this race, there's going to be points available. So I think you're going to see some bit of points changing here and there, but I still think at the end of this race, Gregor Hurtu and Hugo Luis will be out on top.
Well, they'll still be leading in the championship standings. In fact, those standings are coming up on your screen. Confirmation once again that after 10 rounds of the championship, it is Gregor Hurtu who is the championship leader with 450 points. Hugo Luis 361, Ati Kirchhoff 315, Jake Sturgis 227, and then Fulvio Barrizzini, your pole sitter for this race, with 180 points. Martin Kroenke's fallen back down the standings. He had to take a couple of races absence due to some issues affecting him in Germany. He has 172 points. Martin Patila from Finland, 165 points. Luke McLean from Australia, 162. Stephen Michaels, 161 points. Ika Harpala running out your top 10, 142 points. And Ben, those guys from 5th through 10th, a win, a 2nd place, a 3rd place that they might normally be able to fight for here today, that can make a huge difference, because that gap is so tight from 5th all the way down into at least the 10th position. You can go almost all the way back to about 15th.
Yeah, even though like you don't receive anything physically for finishing inside the top 10, bragging rights, you can go to your teammate, you can go and post on forums, people congratulate you for a top 10, you're in the top 10 sim races in the world. This is the most competitive sim racing event and championship in the world. People have got to remember that. People strive for this position. Oh, I'm battling for 15th. I can get 13th if I finish 2nd. And they finish 2nd, they get 13th. They go and brag about it. And so be it. I would too.
Going to step aside for just one moment, have a short message from our words at iRacing, and then we'll be back for live coverage of the 11th round of the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series. We're at the Brickyard, Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
Simulated racing can be awesome, but it can also be kind of a free-for-all. Interestingly, auto racing faced the same problem in its earlier days. Whether it was on the back roads, the beaches, or the city streets, the racing was fun. But there was always a certain level of chaos and danger, until some folks came along and put some order to all of this. Stuff like official racetracks, regulations about weight and equipment, and enforcement of standards. That's what gave us high-speed excitement, fast-paced action, and photo finishes. That's when racing became racing. The guys over at iRacing.com have made the same transformation in the world of sim racing. Sure, they've got the most accurate tracks and realistic cars out there, but that's just the start. See, iRacing analyzes the performance and results of each driver in every race, so you can be sure you're always placed in races where the competition will be tight, and that those reckless drivers who ruin it for us all are kept in the pits. Not to mention that with over 45,000 active members already in their vast community, you can find races day and night, so you can always get in on the action. You can even join a league of your favorite series. And since updates are always automatic, you don't have to worry about software and can focus on the track. Zip up your fire suit and check out iRacing.com.
Welcome back to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway for the 11th round of the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series here, live on GlacierTV. Will Vincent, along with Ben Rothberg and Dan Blake, along with our special guest Andy Kay from the Radicals team, will be with us for part of the race, as we'll be bringing you 73 laps of amazing WCS coverage. We're at the Brickyard, 2.61 miles in length, 13 corners, built in 1999, first raced on in 2000, and then modified in 2006. This track really does test the drivers. Let's give a shout out to our sponsors. First of all, to Team Redline for World Championship tipping. Head over to teamredline.co.uk/tipping and bet on where you think all the WCS drivers will finish in each and every race. Also to our friends over at ETV and to iRacing.com as well, purveyors for the world's most realistic racing simulation. Head over to iRacing.com right now where you can get yourself half price off your first 3 months membership. Dan, we're at the Brickyard. These guys are trying to pit in. Luke McLean just horrible there on attempted pit in. He completely missed the apex of the corner. That's one of those things to pit in here. You're going to have to try and get in as late as possible to get as much speed as possible. And because of the fact it's such a narrow groove, if you've got a slower car ahead of you, you're going to lose 2 seconds. If you mess up, you're hitting the wall, it's game over.
Yeah, the pit lane and the pits are something which is going to probably have a bit of an effect on the race, because it's a very, as you said before, Will, with the closer the speeds going in, if you can brake later and get down the speed, you could probably gain a second or maybe even more during the course of the pit stop, just purely on your skill levels to get down to the speed and take the pit lane. You've really got to attack this pit lane, but if you get it wrong, you're going to lose a lot of time. But if you get it right, you could also gain quite some crucial time as well.
To start running through then your grid for this, the 11th round of the series, Fulvio Barazini scoring his first pole position of the series, a time of 1:06.869, just over a tenth of a second ahead of the pro driver in the number 61 car of Abe, who starts this race in second position. Luke McLean in third, Mo Garfido in the fourth position, Yudan Rumi in fifth, Marty Patila in sixth. And Ben, those top 3 rows, very, very good drivers. Any one of those top 6 could easily win this race here today.
You know what? And I haven't said this for a long time. Well, one is because I've been in the commentary booth for a long time, but I'd love Luke McLean to win. Yes, he is an Aussie, and I do have a little bit of a soft spot for him because he is an Aussie. But God, I'd love to see him win. I don't think he actually has won a race this season. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong. But
nope.
If he won, the whole of Australia would go nuts. We'd have a party for him. National Luke McLean Day.
National Luke McLean Day. In 7th position, Stephen Michaels. 8th, Alexia Loma. 9th, Max DeLorco. 10th is Yuan Yend. To have a look through the rest of your grid, Andre Borcher will start in 11th. Alongside him in row number 6 will be Matthias Egger. Jeremy Bouteloup in the 13th position, David Corps in 14th, Fabio De Carmo in the 15th spot, Miguel Martin in 16th. Then Jake Sturgis will start in this race in the 17th. However, he will be starting this race from pit road, as we said, due to a Section 13.1 violation. In the 18th position, Alex Simpson, Paul Ilbrink 19th, Ricardo Castro-Edio in the 20th position. And I'm having a look through, Dan. You've got Yu Abe in the 61 car, pro driver. Jorn Jens, pro driver. You've got Fabio Di Como, pro driver. Miguel Martin, pro driver. Alex Simpson, Ricardo Castro-Edo, all pro drivers racing here today. And you go down the field, and there's a lot of these guys who are making that transition up one race early, and they've got a good chance to capitalise and get themselves some good points here today.
They do indeed, Will. That's one of the advantages as a result of us having a few absentees today. It's allowed more of these drivers in the Pro Series to come through, and they're proving that they can fight right at the top end. You've got Yuhei Abe, as you said, in second position, Jorn Jens in 10th. That's 2 pro drivers in the illustrious top 10 positions. Fantastic stuff, and if they can get some good results today, it'll be good experience for next year, but they could also maybe have a very, very late charge, although unlikely, to secure a spot in next year's championship.
Indeed, it can happen. If you're a pro driver and you race up and you get yourself into the top 25 positions, there is a good chance that you'll be racing in the World Championship Series without going through the drama of the iRacing.com Pro Series of Road Racing in Ben. We saw just how difficult that series was last year, of course. Richie Stanaway won that race, the New Zealand driver, but a lot of drivers had to put it all on line just to get themselves into the World Championship Series contention.
That's exactly right. But what do you expect? Like, this is the World Championship Series. First word, world. It is the best drivers in the world racing. You have to be in that top bunch to qualify.
So we've got a little under 10 seconds left on the play clock before the checkered flag comes out to start this race. Give me a winner, Dan.
I'm going to go with Luke McLean. I think Redline have proven this year they've got a very good setup, and as Ben said, I think he's due a win, but I think Luke McLean probably will be one of my favourites for this race.
Ben, you've said McLean as well. We're going to get word from Joni as to who he's going to pick. I'm going to personally go with the pro driver, Abe, and I think it'll be amazing if that 61 car can get it to Victory Road. We know how consistent he can be, and there is a good chance that he could win this race here today. Don't forget as well, live timing and scoring unfortunately isn't available for this race. We will bring it back for the next race, unfortunately. Also, you can watch this race in Portuguese if you head over to iRacing Brazil. Those guys do a fantastic job. Put both the streams up. You get double camera angles as well. Fulvio Barrazzini starting this race from the pole position. Keep an eye out on Pablo Lopez. He's driving an emotional race from that 33rd position here today. One of his good friends lost in that horrific train accident in Spain less than 1 week ago. All of our thoughts and prayers from us here at GlacierTV going out to anyone affected in that horrific accident. The guys are lining themselves up for the grid for what will be the 11th round of the championship, waiting for those lights to go on, the iRacing.com gantry, and they will go on in about 5 seconds time. We'll be racing for a total of 73 laps here today around the Brickyard. Waiting any moment now, we're going to get racing here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Who's it going to be from the start of this race? We are green, and it's a good start here by UAB. They're going to go free wide into turn number 1, but the pro driver, UAB, is going to take the race lead away from Barrazzini. Barrazzini's going to slide into the 3rd position. No, he won't. Barrazzini, AB turned around there. AB turned around down into turn number 1 by Luke McLean there. And it was almost a huge accident. David Corb's getting a good start as well. But the guy who led into turn number 1 has fallen to the rear of the field. Yuhu Abe Ben. We've got more drama involving Marcus Caton, Diego Alfaro, turned around on the racetrack. A couple of drivers involved. The 3 car incident, Reswich was just about able to get through that. But Barrazzini leads away as they come into the pack straight away for the first time. Luke McLean had some serious issues. He's falling right down the order. Wing damage to Luke McLean. UAB stuck at the rear of the field. Drama down into turn 1.
Day done for Luke McLean, I believe. A lot of wing damage to the front of his car and a lot of side pod damage as well as slowing down. A lot of drama happening around turn 3. Luke McLean gets very close. It gets out of the way, lucky enough. All the lap radicals guys get through. Going reports of Jake Sturgio still in the pit lane from that pit lane start.
Yeah, and so something might have happened to that number 3 car, the IronX Racing Machine of Jake Sturgis. He's going to be scored 1 lap down as they complete lap number 1. Barrazzini is your race leader. We're going to turn our attention over to Jorn Jens very quickly. He is currently scored in the 8th position. He's been able to get himself past Michaels, trying to work on Fabio Di Como in that 7th position right now. Jens actually cut through the cones there. That might be a slowdown penalty for him. Yes, it is. Jorn Jens going to lose a spot there to Stephen Michaels. and also to Jason Lover and Jeremy Booterloop and Dan, who cannot cut inside those cones down into turn number 1.
No, and also with this new build, the cones are actually movable now, so once the cones are gone, they got to try and judge that turn 1, try to judge it even better because they won't have the marker points of the cones.
So, to run through your top 10, it is Fulvio Barrazzini leading the way by just over a second for Mo Garfido. Marco Patilla in the 3rd position, Max Delorco in 4th, Matthias Egger rounds out your top 5, then David Decor, Fabio Di Carmo, then it is, I'm going to get my timing up, it's Jeremy Bootsloop, Jason Lover and Andre Bortra. They are your top 10 right now. Barrazzini dodged a huge bullet at the start of that race though, because there was a chance that he was going to actually come out of turn number 1 in 3rd position, Ben.
Yeah, it's exactly right. I'm amazed at what happened down at turn 1. Luke McLean has since apologised to I believe is how you say his name, which is really good sportsmanship there from Luke. But it's a bit unfortunate for those two guys. Look like they had really good pace. I'm actually looking down at turn 1 and I'm seeing a lot of the guys having to slow down. They're finding it very hard to judge whereabouts these cones are, and I'm getting reports that Andy K has just reported that Pablo's is gone from 33rd on the grid to 12th. That's a great effort.
I tell you what, that must all have been down to those first couple of corners because, as I say, there was drama down in turn number 1. Lopez started this race in the 33rd position, was able to get around it. Now running in the 12th spot, our biggest mover by a massive margin in the race. In fact, it's the biggest gain we've had in the first 3 laps of a World Championship Series race all season long. The gap out front, Philo is falling back at about 3/10 on the second lap. Takes a very different line into turn number 12 compared to Fulvio Barrazzini. Patilla is a third of 3 seconds back as Ilbrink is down onto pit road. There's some early issues we believe for Ilbrink. He got some damage on lap number 1. Going to turn our attention over, however, to Matthias Egger, and he's going to go down the inside of Max Delorco, moving himself up into the 4th position as they come down into turn number 1. Will he get it stick? Yes, he does. Matthias Egger displaces Max Delorco, and we always know with Delorco, Dan, that he might be on a really light strategy, he might be on a very heavy strategy. Knowing Delorco, he's probably filled that car up to the max here today, trying to do that alternative strategy, knowing he had a pretty decent starting position.
Yeah, we've seen Delorco do that in the past where he's gone on a different strategy to everyone else. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but we're interested to see how that works. Like you talked about Matthias Egger a second ago taking 4th place, and Matthias Egger, a very strong runner from him at the moment. He doesn't even have a top 10 to his name so far, so we'll be hoping to secure this good result because it will help his championship push and surviving to next season. Yeah,
Matthias Egger is one of those drivers that needs a very good finish here today. And I'm having a look out front, and Barrazzini is just driving away, Ben, at the rate of about 3/10 of a second lap over Mo Garfido. We know how good Mo Garfido is at this racetrack. We saw him in the Pro Series. Barrazzini doing a great job, however. But meanwhile, Fabio Di Carmo is looking as though he's going to try and set himself up to make a pass for Max Delorco. And Max Delorco, we know he's not that slow in the straight line. He's blatantly on a very high fuel load to start this race as Di Carmo sweeps past, cuts the cones, so he might have to take a slowdown penalty there. We'll get confirmation. He doesn't by the look of it, so he just about got away with that.
That was really lucky there. I was watching that as well. Sorry, Dan. Just quickly back to Fabio Barrazzini. This is where strategies come into it. This is such a long race. Do you 2-stop? Do you 1-stop? He's just lost a little bit of time to Mo Garfido now, but I've heard a little bit of reports that Barrazzini is on a 2-stop strategy, and I wouldn't be surprised if Filo's on a 1-stop. So we'll have to wait and see how this plays out.
And yeah, you say he lost about 10th of a second to Filo the last time by. We know how good Barrazzini is at the start of this race. In fact, Alexia Loma is going to be put a lap down to Mo Garfido. Fido, unfortunately, doesn't get him on the straightaway. He had to take him on the final corner of the racetrack. He would have got himself a huge draft there. But come past the stripe once again. This is the battle for the race lead. Fido does a 1 minute 9.324. He loses a couple of attempts that time to Fulvio Barrazzini. Meanwhile, Stephen Michaels is going to go past David Corp down that front straightaway. Michaels is just about going to get clear. He might be able to take his normal line into the corner. He's going to go and really attack it there. And he was able to move himself now up into the 7th position on the racetrack, overtaking David Corp. And Dan, this is that thing. I think a lot of these guys in the top 10, 2 very different strategies right now.
Yeah, also he's just lost a position to Andre Botra's Booty. Went very wide coming into turn 3, so Jeremy Bootsleep's gone up to position as well. But what was it you were saying, Will?
It's okay, just carry on.
Okay, I was just saying about the mistake there. So not only has Joey Busick lost the position to Stephen Michaels, but also Andrzej Bocha's come past, so that's Bocha up into 9th position.
So, we'll run through the retirees out of this race, and we have Timo Ivonen. He was out at the start of this race, his car flipping upside down. Simon Cattell, 4 laps down, just putting that car off track. He might be out of the race. Paul Ilbrink out of the race. He had some damage. He came in at the end of lap number 2. Xiao Pino is scored 3 laps down in this race. Luke McLean is out of the race. Jake Sturgis is scored 2 laps down. He just couldn't get out of his pit box at the start of this race. And Alexia Loma is scored 1 lap down early in the running as well. I want to talk about Yu Abe very quickly, because he's actually only scored 25 seconds behind the race leader. He's doing some slow lap times because I think he has got some rear wing damage. But Abe is trying to get himself back up into the top 15. He's scored right now 19th position. He's actually just about as complete a pass, I believe, as John Jens in the 64 car. Abe has some great speed. And I tell you what, we've just lost ourselves a tremendous battle there between Barazini, the established driver, and the new guy of Abe. And that's really disappointing, Ben.
Yeah, I believe that he had the pace to really potential for the win today, but you never know. He might be holding out till the pit stops to fix that damage on that car, if there is any, if there can be fixed. So we'll have to wait and see if he actually does make it to there. It does look like there's a fair bit of damage on that rear wing from that turn 1 accident with Luke McLean on the first lap.
Meanwhile, we're going to go on board with Daniel Lopez as he comes out of turn 11 down into turn 12. It's Lopez on Lopez as they work themselves down towards turn 13 and the front straightaway. You can see already Lopez is having to put himself to the outside line. He's almost about to run over Lopez. Now he's going to slot down to the inside. Look at the speed on that Ferrari car as he comes down towards turn number 1 once again. Daniel Lopez ahead now of Pablo Lopez. Lopez loses a position, and it seems as though Pablo was great out of the box, Dan, but now he's just starting to fall back a little bit. He's 20 seconds behind the race leader, and he's slowly being caught up by Ben Cornett in that number 14 car.
Yeah, Pablo Lopez made a great start to the race, and as you said before, just starting to slow. We don't know what fuel strategy is, or maybe because he started further back, he was going for a longer strategy, and he wasn't expecting to be so high up. And the cars who are overtaking him now, maybe on lighter fuel. That's something to bear in mind. But also talking about heavy fuel, though, Stephen Michaels is right on the rear of Max Delorco now, trying to take 6th position, and I think Delorco probably is on a heavier fuel strategy himself.
Yeah, we'll get confirmation as they come out, because we know how good Delorco can be in a straight line. We know how good also Michaels can be in a straight line. And a lot of this comes down to gearing, Ben. And a lot of these drivers normally would be the ones using that extra long 7th gear. It's normally the likes of Luis and Hutu who doesn't use that long 7th gear. And that means you get a lot of passing here today. Michaels down to the inside. He will complete that pass from Max Delorco if he can just get it down into turn number 1. Still side by side into the corner. And Michaels moves himself now up into the 6th spot on the racetrack. So the Twister Racing car doing a good job there. But a lot of passing on that front straightaway. And it all really does come down to gearing.
That's exactly right. And as we brought up in the pre-race show, you can take a clicker wing off, but it is a little bit risky through the tight section where we are now with Max Delorco and Stephen Michaels. But yeah, it does help you on a straight line, really. You can tell the difference. I've always been a fan of Max Delorco. He's always tried something different in the races. I do believe that he's on a different strategy, and I do believe he'll be up in the podium, as he always is at the end of the race somehow.
One of the other drivers who we think might be on an alternative strategy is actually Mo Garfido in that 27 car. And I only say that because I'm having a look at their straight line speed as they come down into turn number 1. Fulvio Barazini, we can get a confirmation of him right now. He has just gone past that car, so I have a little bit of his toe. He's doing 191 miles an hour. Mo Garfido is doing 191 again. He got a lot of a toe there down the front straightaway, however. So that paid to us doing a true comparison. Joey Butelik, meanwhile, is going to get himself past Max Delorco. No, he won't. He slots back into line there as they come down into turn number 1. A lot of the guys clipping the cones there down into turn number 1. To run through the people who have moved up in this race, you have Fabio Camo, he's up 10 positions, now running in the 5th spot, started this race in the 15th position. Matthias Eggers up 8 positions as well. They're your 2 biggest movers in the top 10. Pablo Lopez up 20 positions since the start of this race. Ben Cornett and PJ Sturgis, they are both up 15 positions in this race. Our biggest loser, that is Yu Abe. He started this race in the 2nd position and got turned around down into turn number 1 by Luke McLean there, as it was going to be a fantastic three-way battle for the lead. We can see it happening already. Yuan Rumi also down 19 positions. A bad day there for the Japanese team, Dan.
Yeah, bad day for them indeed, but further up it's hotting up a bit between 3rd, 4th and 5th, quite close proximity with Martin Patila, Matthias Agas, Fabio De Carmo, and I think Matthias Agas is going to try and get a draft off the lap car of Christian Lorente to put himself closer to Martin Patila.
Yeah, and Ager, his last lap time was a 1 minute 9.911. Patila a 1 minute 10.164. Of course, you do get the dirty air in the midfield section of the racetrack, pretty much all the way from about turn 3 on the racetrack, pretty much all the way through to about turn number 10, Ben. And that really does make things difficult when he's stuck behind another car. You see Egger getting a little bit wide on the entry into turn number 6 before he flicks it back down into turn number 7. There is a bit of traffic ahead of those two drivers as well. Now that will probably actually save Patila for one lap as one car moves out of the way if he can get a bit of a draft coming down that front straightaway.
Yeah, the front straightaway draft it's vital really to a good lap, and 2 to passing down to turn 1. But I have found with this car you do get a lot of aero push where the front tends to understeer a lot when you're following closely behind another car in dirty air. So they don't want to get too close, but they want to time it just right that they catch either the lap car or the person in front of them as they hit the front straight.
Egger's going to get himself a good run as they come past the yard bricks once again to put that 11th lap on the books, looking down to the inside, and he will perhaps complete that pass on Martin Patila, move Matthias Egger up into that 3rd position. And you talk about how Egger needs a good point finish here today, Dan. Right now he's in a podium position, and his last lap, a 1 minute 9.557, that is about 7 tenths of a lap slower than Fulvio Barricini out front. But apart from that, he's the fastest guy on the racetrack outside of those top 2.
A long-awaited good result perhaps for Matthias Ager, but also the Orion cars in general seem to be pretty quick. You've got Jeremy Bouty, not Jeremy Bouty, I've got David de Corps also there in 9th position, so...
Andre Borcher, we're just getting word that he is out of the race, and what happened with him is he came down, he actually got T-boned. He T-boned Christian Lorente. Christian Lorente had some damage. He came back onto the racetrack and he hit Andre Borcher, but Borcher completely out of the race. He was running in the 10th position at the time. My Freddy's Day not going well here today. Of course, they're underrepresented. For those of you who are just joining us, we're working ourselves right now on lap number 13 of 73 here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The biggest stories of the day are the fact that there is no Gregor Hutu, no Hugo Luis, no Martin Conke, and no Ati Kirchhoff. The top 4 drivers, we do not know the reasons why, but they have decided to collaboratively, we presume, not to make that trip over to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. For more information, we suggest that you head over to Team Redline on MyFreeID's website after this race. Surely they might be putting out some form of a statement, but the race leader is Fulvio Barricini. He has a 3.8 second gap over Mogar Filo in that 27 car, and Barricini is pulling away still at about 0.3 of a second a lap, Ben. Consistent driving by that Triple M car, who we know can do consistent races.
Sorry to interrupt, but I think Ben's got a few problems, but Fabio De Carmo has gone past Martin Patila as well, so Fabio De Carmo is up into 4th position, and Martin Patila, who was 3rd a couple of laps ago, now finds himself dropped down into 5th position.
Yeah, so a huge pack developing on the racetrack, and this is like situation as well. These drivers can just to and fro positions on the front straightaway. Of course, if you've got 4 cars in, you know, a bit of a draft pack, it actually makes it very difficult for one guy to get past another. The only car that can really go past is the first car in line. Hopefully he pushes him out of line, moves him all the way down to the rear of that pack. But Fabio De Carmo...
Sorry to interrupt, Bill. And it's expensive for the car there of Martin Patila. We said he was in a bit of trouble, and now he's spun the car. But also before then, Stephen Michaels and Max DeLorco had found themselves going past him. So problems for Martin Patila, and it's culminated in spinning in turn number 2.
Yes, a difficult day there for Martin Patila. His race started incredibly well. It has gone down the pan for him for the time being. He is now scored way down the field in the 11th position on the racetrack. So Patila struggling in that Ferrari car all of a sudden. He's pretty much been passed by Daniel Lopez, David de Corps, Max DeLorco, all of those drivers. But still keeping an eye out on that. David de Corps is now behind Max DeLorco. DeLorco is still scored in the top 10 on the racetrack, and even though he's 17 seconds behind the race leader, he's still got a chance of a podium. What he needs to hope, however, is that he can stay within about 25 seconds of your race leader as the pit stop cycle through, and hope that as he's faster later on in the stint, that he can gain some of that time back up. Dell'Orco's not out of the running for a podium position right now.
Certainly not. We've only been 18 seconds behind. If he is on a strategy which is him do one less pit stop, if he is within the pit stop time, we could see him get it could be another one of those performances where he's very quiet, but then he pops up right at the end in the prime positions, because as we said before, he's only 18 seconds behind, and I'm sure a pit stop will take longer than that. So if he keeps on running at a similar pace and keep himself within 20-25 seconds of the podium, then I think with Max Dell'Orco will be in for another good result today.
So to run through your top 10, once again, it's Fulvio Barosini now with a 3.8 second gap over Mo Garfido. That has settled down for the time being. Matthias Egger in third, Fabio Di Carmo in fourth, Jeremy Boutaloop in fifth, Stephen Michael sixth, Max Dell'Orco seventh, David Corpus in eighth, Jason Lover in ninth, and then Daniel Lopez rounds out your top 10 on the racetrack. It does look as though that pack has kind of separated for the time being. Stephen Michaels is doing faster lap times at this stage of the race than Max Dell'Orco behind him, but Jeremy Boutaloop has been able to pull away from him just a little bit as they came past straight last time. A 1 minute 8.9 for Boutaloop. That time Michaels was a little bit faster. He's still within draft range and he can close dramatically up on that front straightaway, Dan, but then it does look as though he suffers a little bit in that dirty air for the middle portion of the racetrack.
The dirty air effect not really helping Stephen Michaels, but I think Stephen Michaels overall will fancy his chances against Jeremy Boutaloop, but be interested to see how that one fits in, because that's for a top 5 position. But Stephen Michaels definitely getting closer to the rear of Jeremy Boutaloop's car, so if you can get it close enough despite the dirty air, you may be able to pull out to the inside for turn 1 and take that 5th position. And
behind him, as I say, you've got Max Dell'Orco. He still is struggling. I expect him to come back into play within the next 5 or 10 laps as his fuel starts to burn down. But Max Dell'Orco right now is doing exactly the same lap times. Sorry, Mo Garfido is doing exactly the same lap times as Fulvio Barosini. Last time Barosini a 1 minute 8.4. Fido lost 2 tenths that last time by, moving the gap up to 4 seconds. But until that point, Ben, it did look as though Fido was at least maintaining that gap to first position. Now, Fido is on a heavier fuel load, like we are led to believe. We'll ask the Team Radical's boss about that in a couple of moments' time. But if Fido's on a heavier strategy, then there is a chance that he's still within a very good chance of winning this race.
He's in a great chance. He's only, last lap by, he was only 2 tenths slower than Barosini. I think if he, well, hopefully he is, because MF got 2 different strategies at the front of the field. I hope he is. I reckon it's going to be a great race.
So, the gap, to say, it's about 4.1 seconds on the racetrack. We talked to Team Redline's principal, Dom Duhan, last race. Today, in the GlacierTV booth, we have the Team Radicals team principal, Andy Kay. Andy, you've got yourself Mo Garfido, who scored in the 2nd position right now. You've got Jeremy Boutaloop in the 5th spot. So 2 guys in the top 5 right now. But also a standout drive by Pablo Lopez running in the 12th position right now. 3 guys doing a sterling job on the racetrack.
Yeah, superb showing. Actually, we got Andrew Slocum in 15th as well, with just Paul Ilbrink, who got into a bit of collision on turn 1 of lap 1, unfortunately. But yeah, a great show from us so far.
And I know that you like to keep your cards to your chest, but Mo Garfido, is he on a heavy strategy here today?
Are you saying he's eating the pies? No, in all seriousness, I'm not sure what strategies he's on. He's had a very busy week this week and spent a lot of time practicing on his own, so I'm not really sure about that. Your guess is as good as mine.
Come on, Andy. Surely you've got something up the sleeve.
Well, I know that Glacier runs a very slight time delay, but not long enough so that competitors won't be able to use it. So, unfortunately, there's no information coming.
There we are, and we'll talk to Andy a little bit later on in the race. We'll find out what the strategies are in the next 10 laps or so, as Fido's still losing about a 10th of a second a lap to Fulvio Barosini. And that's the thing as well. I'm going to talk about Fido for a little bit, because in the Pro Series of Road Racing, Ben, he was always a bridesmaid, never the bride. He came home second so many times, just was never able to get to the top step of that podium. Arguably, he has the chance to get himself to the top of one of the biggest races in the world, and he's in a good showing, just 4 seconds behind the race leader.
He's got a great chance at the moment, but even for the podium positions, you've got pit stops are going to be a key. If Barosini's on a 2-stop strategy, I don't think he's going quick enough to be on a podium at the end of today. He really does have to be on a single pit stop strategy. If he's only in the last lap, he lost a tenth to Morgo Philo anyway. So maybe they are on the same strategy.
New features to GlacierTV, going to show you the fastest lap that these guys have done on the racetrack. And to say, Fulvio Barazini is one of the fastest guys. In fact, he probably is the fastest guy on the racetrack. 1 minute 8.403 is his fastest lap of the race. Mo Garfido, his fastest lap, he set that last time by at 1 minute 8.515. He's working himself through turn number 13 once again, past the yard of bricks. Of course, Dan, this is one of those racetracks where, you know, fastest laps can be a little bit confusing in some ways, because if you get yourself 2 cars ahead of you and get a huge draft through turn number 11, 12 and 13, you can get yourself half a second on the racetrack if your gearing set up properly.
We'll go back to that quickly because we've got a possible change for 3rd place. Fabio Di Carmo right on the back of Matthias Eger. Couldn't quite make the move going into turn 1, but as you said, Will, this is one of the tracks where having a draft off the cars you're about to lap can be quite useful, because you can also help defend from the cars behind, but the extra, as you said before, it helps with the lap times as well. You can gain a couple 2-3 tenths just by being in the draft of somebody. So the fastest laps may not necessarily be the cars which have the fastest and the driver's skill. A little bit of luck can help you there as well.
In fact, we're going to go on board of Fabio Di Carmo to come down into the complex. This is the section of the racetrack which was renewed for MotoGP racing. It was originally 2 hairpins and they changed it to 2 90-degree right-handers, but it's actually a lot more difficult now. Coming out of turn number 11, that's where Di Carmo loses a lot of his speed and when he needs it most, and that allows Eger to stay out just ahead as they work themselves through turn number 12. There is a lap car ahead of them as well, which will just give Eger a tiny bit of a slipstream. You see already Eger going defensive as Di Carmo is hunting him as they come down towards turn number 1. Di Carmo not close enough once again, and Ben, that was all down to the exit that Di Carmo got out of turn number 11 on the racetrack.
Yeah, exactly. This straightaway is vital to passing. If it wasn't there, we wouldn't be there. We're getting reports that Tacoma is only hitting about 308 and then topping out in 7th gear, top gear in on the front straight, sorry, where most of the other guys are hitting about 311, 310-ish. So it's 2Ks. 2Ks doesn't seem like a lot, but in a straight line, when you're trying to pass, it's pretty hard to pass when you're slower than the car in front of you.
It does look as though Tacoma is actually very good in his lower gears. It's when he gets into that 7th gear, and that's the sort of thing that we normally see the issues with Ruiz and Hutu and people like that, when they all run very, very similar 7th gears, and they all pretty much are just running out of gear behind each other because they need to be in a situation where they can hot lap better than the cars ahead of them. Now, we know that, of course, Eger's come through the field a little bit. Di Carmo has come through the field a little bit as well in that number 65 car. Di Carmo started this race in 15th position. Matthias Eger, who's sat in the 3rd position right now, he started that race down in the 12th position on the racetrack in that Orion Racing car. We do know that the 2 fastest cars in the straight line historically are the Orion Racing cars and also the INX Racing cars. To give you an update on the INX drivers, as say, Jason Lovett is scored in the 10th position on the racetrack right now. But the big issue of the day, so Jake Sturgis scored down in 26th position, 2 laps down. I said at the start of this broadcast, Ben, he had to start this race from pit road, but it does look as though that he just didn't get going. Maybe there was some form of an issue that prevented him from getting onto the racetrack after he, after that race went green.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened there. It was a bit of a bit of accident that those guys didn't actually get out in time, but I guess this is racing. As we do have pit stops commencing, looks like car 65, Fabio Di Carmo, is in the lane for his first pit stop on lap number 22. So he's gone from 4th position and now dropping down as he's the first one to jump for the gun. I don't actually currently see any other cars in the lane or jumping into the lane, so that's very early pit stop. Back to you, Will.
Yeah, Fabio Di Carmo is by far the earliest car to come in, and this is a clear 2-stop strategy for him. In fact, his first stint is actually down about 3 or 4 laps shorter than we expected it to be. Really, he's right on the money, but we expect that first stint normally to be a tiny bit longer, so he can have that late race stage to the line on fresher tyres towards the end of the race.
Yeah, the opposite to what we'd expect him to see, but Fabio Di Carmo obviously feels this is the best strategy for him to have a shorter first stint and then go for the longer second one. He's come out now, and he's come out from say 16th position. So Fabio to come down to 16th. We're talking before as well about strategy about Max Delorco, and he's even still only 21.5 seconds behind the leader. So although he's down in 6th position, Max Delorco could probably, or possibly even, still be in the ballpark for that podium finish we were talking about earlier.
So, Fulvio Barozzini still leads the way. That gap has actually come up by about 2 seconds in the last 5 or 6 laps. Barozzini is charging at this stage of the race, and that kind of might help that theory, Ben, because Filo's on a lighter fuel, because if you're into the last 5 laps of a run, that is the point when that car really starts flying. Of course, you'll be better in the corners, you'll be better down the straightaway. The issue for a two-stop strategy is, as well, we know the way the tyres heat up now, these first 3 or 4 laps are incredibly treacherous, and that might be one of the reasons why some of these guys, people like Delorco, we think also Filo, might be on that one stopper because they don't want to deal with those tyres being ridiculously cold and really hard to drive.
I'm currently just watching Filo from the onboard now, and it looks like he's really struggling with the rear end in that car, which I presume he's got more weight on board. Like, the car's sliding around, it's understeering, it doesn't look like a really safe car to drive, to be completely honest. And the times are showing a 109.2 last lap by Mogar and a 108.3 by Barozzini. He's extended that lead to 6.6 seconds now from first to second. Eger, also in the 3rd position, has also dropped back a little bit as well, also lapping about 6/10 slower than the front guys. So I'm not sure what's going on here. I don't know who's going to pit when, but I know it's a cracking race.
And Stephen Michaels right now is the 2nd fastest guy on the racetrack in that number 20 car. In fact, he's now the fastest guy on the racetrack, and he's not got a draft at all. He scored 17 seconds behind your race leader, but now he's into clean air dam. That Twister racing car, Stephen Michaels, and you know, I was in some ways highly critical of him the first couple of races of the season. He switched teams and he had a transformation. Michaels, again, is looking for a shot at the podium.
Very good performance so far for Stephen Michaels, but with his pace upping up, is this a case of maybe in lap, are we expecting him in maybe the next lap or 2? But after that, we've got, as we said before, Stephen Michaels is in 4th position, looking to try and get that podium position. As you said, Will, is since the change of teams, Stephen Michaels seems to have flourished out of it, definitely come out of his shell a lot more.
So working ourselves right now on lap number 26 on the racetrack, and we're actually joined right now by one of the 2 team Redline drivers who haven't made the trip over to Indianapolis Motor Speedway today. Of course, we have Luke McLean, who's currently scored way down the front. In fact, he's out of the race after that incident down into turn number 1 with Hugh Abe. And we've also got Ben Cornett scored currently in the 12th position in that number 14 car. The 2 team Redline drivers who haven't turned up, Adi Kirchhoff and Gregor Hutu. Also 2 team My3ID drivers of Hugo Luis and Martin Kroenke haven't made that trip over to Indiana. And actually, I'm guessing it's not just because of the fact that you don't like Hoosiers.
Well, first of all, hi everybody. It kind of feels sad that I'm not racing, that I'm here explaining why I'm not racing. Indianapolis is not the most fun track for me. I can't speak for Greg, I can't speak for Hugo or for Martin. But for me, I had a different approach to this race. I just returned from a small holiday trip, and I returned into the new build of iRacing on this track, which is unfortunately not the best combination and not the most fun combination to drive. So we did some talking in the team, and we did some good discussion. And the top 3 in terms of points, it's quite settled. You know, Gregor is quite well in the lead. Hugo is behind, I believe, a couple of points, and I am far behind Hugo with a big lead over 4th position. So it just made sense for me to skip this race and take a deep breath and prepare for next race, where I believe the car will be massively improved, as I heard some really good stories already that it's getting better. So I'm really hopeful for next races, and right now I'm focusing personally on the GT Academy, where I'll be competing, and I believe the qualification session, the qualification days, it will end one of these days, so I need to set a time to be sure to make it to the next round there.
You talk about the fact that it wasn't only yourself, Team Redline, but also My 3ID with Hugo Louise that decided not to make that trip over to America. So was it actually a collaborative agreement between the two teams not to race?
Well, you know, it would be sad, like Gregor, he explained, it's in the middle of summer, he's well in the lead, and he really, like he said, the car isn't much fun to drive at the moment, and well, he just likes to brake, and yeah, obviously they are good friends, and they talk, and you know, it was just I guess a good decision. I don't know, I wasn't there in the meeting with them, so I think it's the better way to avoid some horrible race.
Well, thanks very much for that. Actually, we'll talk to you a little bit later on. Meanwhile, Stephen Michaels was able to close up to the rear of Matthias Egger. Last time by, Michaels at 1 minute 8.004. This time 1 minute 8.206. Matthias Egger a full second slower on the racetrack, Ben. And we're setting ourselves up for a great battle for P3 right now on the racetrack.
That's exactly right. The one to watch is Stefan Michaels. He's absolutely flying. Maybe this is his pit stop window. He's on a two-stop strategy maybe. The last 5 laps is where these cars are pretty much the quickest. They're on the lowest fuel. If he's kept the tyres in good tact, he could be on a rocket ship all the way to a podium.
I tell you what as well, Michaels has actually closed up, Dan, a full 2.5 seconds on your race leader the last 5 laps or so. He was struggling in dirty air as he was having to work himself through some traffic on this racetrack. Of course, he started this race in 7th, had to get past the lights of Patila at the start of this race, but now Michaels is really flying. He's now got that draft on Matthias Egger. This is going to be where we see just how much raw speed Stephen Michaels has. As they come out of turn number 13, we're going to go on board with Stephen Michaels. He's going to be very close to making a pass as they come past the yard of bricks. 193 miles an hour already for Stephen Michaels. Matthias Egger is only doing 190. Bam! There he goes. Down to turn 1. Will complete that pass. We knew that Egger wasn't as far from the straight line as we saw with DeCarmo, but Michaels now up into that 3rd position, and that gap, that last lap, came down by 0.6 for the second down. Michaels, in the harshest of all realities, isn't yet out of the race.
No, he's certainly turned up the wick, you could say, definitely. Michaels taking 0.6, you said, and that's out of the leader, Fabio Barazzini. And he's got about 6-7 seconds to Mogar Filo in 2nd place. Stephen Michaels really on fire, and depending on his pit stop strategy, it looks like he's putting himself right in contention here.
I tell you what, at the start of this race, I said in no uncertain terms, I had no idea who was going to win this race. I originally thought that Abe would have had the chance to win it. He got a great start. Unfortunately, an incident down at turn 1 put him out of the race. If you want to think back to historic F1 races, think about Mika Hakkinen and David Coulthard down at turn 2 of the Austrian Grand Prix in '99. That's a similar sort of thing that happened. Unfortunate situation. Luke McLean out of the race. Abe now scored down in the 15th position, 51 seconds behind your race leader, and struggling with some rear wing damage to his race car. Barazzini's been able to pull out a big gap over Mogar Filo. That gap is now up to about 7.8 seconds on the racetrack. In fact, Filo was able to close 0.3 of a second like last lap. He did a 1 minute 8.817 compared to a 1 minute 9.176 over Barazzini. But Filo has fallen off pretty badly in the last 7 or 8 laps, you have to say, Ben.
Yeah, exactly. Barazzini, he's out in front. He's got the leader. He's got 7 seconds, which is great. I believe you're going to see him in the pit lane relatively soon, I think. Maybe it's a tyre issue. Maybe it's a fuel thing. Maybe it's just heavier. And Filo, we're getting reports that Filo may have struck a cone and have a little bit of wing damage or under tray damage. Still trying to get confirmation, 100% sure. But he's still lapping around. He's just done an 8.2. which was one of the quickest laps out there. Actually was. No, or nearly was. Stefan Michaels has just pipped him by a 10th, but Filo's going, he's killing it. These guys and Stefan Michaels, they're all doing exactly the same times, 108.2s, 108.3s.
Indeed, and Filo, that gap is static now at 7.81 seconds. Fastest laps of the race, Stephen Michaels is by far the fastest guy on the racetrack right now. That gap, in fact, has now come down to less than 14 seconds Michael said a 1 minute 8.2. You talked about the last time by. The top 3 drivers pretty much separated by just 1/10 of a second on the racetrack. Barazini might get a bit of an advantage right now as he's going to get the draft from Miguel Martin as they come out of turn number 11. He will sweep past him before he gets down into turn 12, so therefore he won't get that advantage down that long front straightaway. But you have to say those top 3 drivers very equally separated, and they are all clearly right now on a one-stop strategy, Ben.
Yeah, you'd want to think so now on lap 32. So the only person who has pitted, if we can get this right, as I scroll through the standings. Yes.
In that 65 car, he pitted. He's clearly on a 2-stop race. We thought that Max Ilorco was going to be on a 1-stop strategy, and a lot of the other guys were going to be on a 2-stopper. It does look as though that, simply put, Max Ilorco just doesn't have the pace here at Indy, which is surprising because he did have good pace when we saw him in the iRacing.com Pro Series of Road Racing as the car goes very sideways. That's Wes Richards, who is scored 2 laps down right now. Richards is struggling, and in fact we saw issues with Richards' car in qualifying, Ben. But I don't know if he had some form of engine issue or whatever, but he just didn't have the raw power coming through turn number 13. It did look as though he was actually slowing down.
Yeah, Richards has been a funny one. He's been... it's hard to explain. During qualifying, it sounded like he was lifting off during... I thought Philo was going to pit then. It was lifting off during the last corner. It was like he was saving engines or a gearbox. Like, these guys aren't restricted like in real life where they only have 8 engines for the whole season. But it's kind of what he was trying to do.
It is in so many ways. Very quick, we're going to show you a replay of this race from the start. And the start of this race was incredibly interesting. In fact, we're going to get that up on your screen now. On board from Pablo Lopez, who went up 20 positions in the first 3 laps of this race. He got a blinding start. There's no cars ahead of him. So he's able to actually get a little bit of an advantage there. He got held up a little bit by his teammate, Andres Lecombe, as he came down into turn number 1. And this is where all the drama starts. Abe goes off the racetrack, and that causes a bit of a chain reaction. Lopez goes down the middle, 3 of them. Then there were cars slowed down because you had a 2-car incident. Alexia Loma was involved in that. And then you had Christian Laurent involved in an incident as well. Marcus Gaton was turned around on the racetrack. At that point, Lopez was already up a huge number of positions. And that is how he got himself up, essentially, at that point in time, to just behind Miguel Martin, who started that race in the 16th position. So a great start there by Pablo Lopez. We don't often talk about the guys from the rear of the field coming forward to the front, Dan, but Lopez, one of the best starts we've seen in WCS history.
Extraordinary start there from Pablo Lopez. As you said, he avoided the trouble and made some good moves to get himself up, and currently finds himself in 11th position, but he's got Ben Cornett catching him up slowly as well. But fantastic run from Pablo considering the circumstances. 11th place, very brave effort from Pablo so far today.
Very brave effort, and as I said at the start of the race, he's been in a bit of a tough state this past week, Andy, in the fact that he did lose a friend in that horrific train accident in Spain, and he said to me that there was a chance he wasn't going to race this race. Of course, he had his incidents with iRacing Race Control, where he's originally suspended, then reinstated, put on probation. Then he said he wasn't going to race here today, but I think he got himself into that mindset where I think he just wanted to do something good in the memory of that friend he lost.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when your mind's a little bit all over the place, you're not really sure what you're doing, where you're coming from. But Pablo's thing is always to do the best that he can in whatever he does. And I'm sure he's sat there and thinking, you know what, I'm going to give it a go, and if I'm not up to it, I won't do it. And, you know, he gave it a go, didn't have a particularly good qualify, but certainly gained from the commotion in turn 1 on lap 1, and gained a lot of positions. I think right now he's managing to sort of keep his level. He's doing some good laps, but you can see from watching him on the track that, you know, the car's not quite set up right for him, but he's doing a sterling job out there, currently in 11th.
Meanwhile, the other Lopez, Daniel, no, they're not related. Daniel Lopez is able to get himself past David Corpse right there, and he moves himself up a position on the racetrack. Daniel Lopez started this race in the 22nd position on the racetrack, right now scored in the 7th position. So both the Lopezes doing a great job here today. One of them driving for Radicals, the other driver's driving for the Faraja car. And Ben, both Lopezes seem as though they got a spring in their step here today.
Yeah, it's great. I always relate to them as brothers, because they are to me. One is GoPro and the other one is just Daniel. Or sometimes I mix them up, just depending on what my mood is. But no, those guys are always there or thereabouts inside the top 10. But I was just going to make reference to, as we made in the pre-race show, Cornet at the moment right on the tail of Lopez as well as they come up into the last sector of the lap. Ben Cornet needs a good points finish here. He's got a chance. A lot of guys in front of him are really, you'd say, rookies. Yeah, probably not actually. That's probably the wrong word to use. Inexperienced top 10 people. He needs the points. He's got to get in the top 25 to qualify for next year. Really, really needs the points.
I'll tell you what. There's a driver struggling right now, and that is Mogar Philo in that number 27 machine down. He was 2 seconds a lap slower than Michaels that last time by. We talked about how Michaels isn't yet out of this race. He's scored 11 seconds behind your race leader with half a race complete. He's gained up 4 seconds in the last 10 or so laps, and he's closing up on Mogar Philo. As we approach pit stops, Michaels is on a charge. Philo is struggling.
Caught 1.9 in the last lap alone, so it'll be interesting to see what happens to the cross the line this time. But Stephen Michaels definitely the man on the move. So Mogar Philo crosses the line at 108.4. He's sped up that time, but the time from Stephen Michaels is even quicker at 107.9. So Stephen Michaels really pushing for that second position, and give it a lap or two, I think he'll be giving Mogar Philo something to think about for sure.
So the gap between Stephen Michaels and Mogar Philo on the racetrack is 2.5 seconds. It's 11.5 seconds from Stephen Michaels through to Fulvio Barricini. We're going to run a couple of quick simulations to see whether or not Michaels is going to be anywhere near close enough to get to the rear of Fulvio Barricini. But last time by, a 1 minute 7.926 there for Stephen Michaels. Compare that to Fulvio Barricini's time, a 1 minute 8.124. Every single lap he's eating into that lead of Fulvio Barricini, Ben. And we've got a three-way battle for the race lead. It looks like Philo might be out of it for the time being. Might have taken too much of his tyres too early trying to stick with Barricini. But Michaels, his car just looks on fire.
Barricini knows he needs to go. He's picked up the pace really quick, smart. He's just done back-to-back, actually it could be 3 in a row, 108.11 lap times. And we'll wait for Stephen Michaels to come across. Mogar Philo was 4 tenths slower. And another 79.95. Oh, hang on, sorry, let me start again there. I just made a hash of that. A 107.959. That's incredible. He's got the pace of nowhere. And it was the same at, I think it was Sebring, where he got a really good result as well. Stephen Michaels is one to watch in the future.
Yeah, ever since he moved teams and joined Twister Racing, I say it's one of the most successful stories I've seen in WCS this year. The move of Stephen Michaels, now running in the podium position, now closing down Mogar Philo. Philo, it looks like he might actually just be able to keep a little bit of distance because of the fact that Michaels is going to catch a lap car. Depending where he catches them, Michaels could lose it a bit or he could gain tremendously. In fact, it looks like he will gain tremendously because they're going to come onto the banking by the time he catches that lap traffic. That means he'll get a toe down the front straightaway. That means that Michaels might gain a little bit more. And we know how good Michaels is in a straight line. Working themselves out of turn number 13. 38 laps, 39 laps scored complete this time by. Working ourselves now onto lap number 40. Michaels, a 1 minute 7.748. The fastest lap of the race. The gap is now down to 10.6 seconds on the racetrack. And Philo still is struggling. He's all over the place in turn number 1 and 2 there, Dan.
But as we said before, Will, the draft there helped Stephen Michaels enormously. The gap down to his former teammate Fulvio Barricini at the front came down 8 tenths of a second, but Stephen Michaels, the charge continues.
The charge continues for Michaels. Gap now down to 10.6 seconds on the racetrack. To run through your top 10, Fulvio Barricini, your race leader, 9.3 second gap over Mogar Philo. Stephen Michaels in third, 10.7 seconds behind your race leader. Makis Egger is now scored in the 4th position. He's not been able to make any more inroads. He's sat in the 4th spot, 15 seconds behind your race leader. Jeremy Bootlip, 17.8 seconds behind the leader. Max Delorco in the 6th position. Daniel Lopez, 7th. David Corbett in 8th. Martin Patilla in 9th. And then Jason Lover rounds out your top 10. The question from here on in is how long can these guys go? They've done 40 laps now on this one set of tyres. They are all clearly on a one-stop strategy. They are all now past that half race distance, which is going to be the first to blink. And the important question is, if Barricini comes in before Michaels, this race is wide open, Ben.
107.688. Not going to say any more. That's his lap time. He's smashing it.
And he's also now right on the rear of Mogo Fido. What he needs to do is he needs to keep behind him now as they work themselves through that long 180-degree left-hander into turn number 6, right-hander 90 degrees onto the Holman George straightaway. This is that short stretch, which is actually what they use as a way to move people about when the Indy 500 is going on. Down into turn number 7, 90-degree left-hander, 90-degree right-hander, down to turn number 8, turn 9, turn 10. Now they'll come down to turn number 11, that long, difficult right hand. In fact, Fido gets a better run through there. That might just about save him for this lap on the racetrack. It looks like both those drivers are staying. No, Michaels comes in first. Michaels comes in first, and that actually is a lifesaver for Fido and Barazini. Down to 55 miles an hour. And Ben, Michaels is the first to blink. We're having a look to see whether Barazini is in. No, he isn't. He's still on the racetrack. Fido is still on the racetrack. So Michaels is the first to blink. And importantly, what that means is that Barazini might actually be able to pull away a little bit more and gain some of that time back.
Bootaloop's in as well. Just to finish that, we're still waiting on a couple of these other guys just to come around past pit entry to see if these guys pit. Doesn't look like it, but I do agree with you. Filo's been given an extra life. He's got that extra fuel. Let's see how far he can go. His pit stop is going to be shorter. Stefan Michaels is now going to know that he's going to have to nail it. And it looks like he's going to come out in traffic, which is never good.
And it was a long pit stop there for Stephen Michaels as well, which is not what he wanted to do while battling for
Pablo
second
Lopez
position
just
on the
had
racetrack.
a spin on exit trying to avoid Stefan Michaels coming out of pit exit.
Yeah, so Pablo Lopez in that number 9 car, we'll get a replay of that. And that was coming down into turn number 1. In fact, he actually had to outbrake himself to avoid Miguel Martin. Went wide down into turn number 1, spun that car around, losing himself a position, I believe, to Thiago Alfaro. So Pablo Lopez loses a spot there on the racetrack. So difficult times there for Pablo GoPro Lopez. He loses a position there, say, to Thiago Alfaro. But Barazini is your race leader. Now it looks like Fido is down on pit road as well, Dan.
Yeah, so Miguel Fido comes into the pits. There's only an extra lap difference he had there over Stephen Michaels, but an extra lap can make all the difference. It'd be interesting to see just how close they are with Stephen Michaels. He had a very slow pit stop. He said he had a slower pit stop, but Michaels just coming around there for a turn now, and Fido pulling away. So definitely was a bit of a slower pit stop there for Stephen Michaels, because Miguel Fido is going to have a bit of a clear gap between himself and Stephen Michaels. It's not a huge gap, but it's a lot bigger than it was when they came in.
Yeah, that's going to be the big difference maker there for Miguel Fido in his charge to try and keep second position on the racetrack. Matthias Egger still circulating on the racetrack as Barazini onto pit road, Ben.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just struggling a little bit with my internet connection at the moment. Just give me 2 secs.
Barazini down to 55 miles an hour. He is your race leader. He comes down onto pit road. He's going to give that race lead up to Matthias Egger for the time being, but we also believe that Egger is onto pit road. Indeed, he is. So, Barazini down to 55 miles an hour. He has the last pit stall. He's into his pit box. He gets a nice clear run out of pit road as the car comes out of pit road ahead of him. That is Pablo Lopez, who's just made his first and only pit stop of the day. Out goes Fulvio Barazini back into the race lead. And Matthias Egger pits. He's now dropped down the order just a little bit. He's going to take 4 fresh tyres and top up the race gas as well. Fulvio Barazini, for the time being, is scored in the 4th position. Martin Patilla hasn't yet pitted. Max Alorca hasn't yet pitted. Daniel Lopez hasn't yet pitted. We do easily expect Barazini to get back into the race lead once this cycle pits through, but Daniel Lopez is your current race leader, Dan.
Yeah, Daniel Lopez, we said before, him and Pablo are always thereabouts. They seem to also have their unfair share of bad luck, but Daniel Lopez currently leading the race at the moment, so I don't think he'll be able to go too far, maybe a lap or 2 extra, but it is good to see Daniel Lopez in the lead at the moment.
And Daniel Lopez looks like he's coming to pit road this time by. Max Alorca stays out for another lap, so indeed he was heavier then.
Can you make it on no stops?
No.
Does anyone know?
No,
okay.
Nowhere near.
Yeah, I thought he would have been trying something different. But yeah, I don't know. Like, Max Alorca has always been able to. We just got confirmation you can only make about 50 or so laps with max fuel, which has thrown my agenda out of the window just about. But Max Alorca has always been on heavy fuel. Every race he tries something different and always works. So whatever he's doing, it's obviously going to work. Well, hopefully.
So Delorco is now scored as your race leader, of course. In that race at Phillip Island, he was able to pass Gregor Hutu twice, as he was on a 2-stop strategy compared to Gregor Hutu's 1-stop. That 52 car leading the way. He's got himself an 8-second gap over Daniel Lopez, who's just come out of pit road. Barazini's now back up into that second position on the racetrack right now, 13.3 seconds behind Max Delorco. And in reality, that's going to drop Delorco right into range of the likes of Michaels, Lovat, and Egger. So, Dad, it's not working out too badly for Delorco. Now he's on light fuel.
No, we said before about Max Delorco, and ahhing what sort of strategy was he on, but Max Delorco again running low fuel, and also with the fact he's been low fuel, despite the fact his tyres may not be quite as stage as the rest of them, I think Delorco will now start to put himself to factor himself back into the top 3 or 5 for this race.
To give you an update on the Stephen Michaels situation, he has got himself a 2-second gap right now to Mo Garfield. He's going to have to do that work all over again. But he's just working himself past on lap traffic. That will hurt him, help him even. 1 minute 8.629 for him as he comes past the yard of bricks once again. Compare that to a 1 minute 10.047. Figo lost 2 seconds in 1 lap there, Ben.
Yeah, I don't know. Philo looks very not in control of his car. We might be able to get a little bit of confirmation from Andy. I know he's been a little bit quiet and a little bit shy and keeping on the low light, but Andy, you there, mate?
I'm here. I'm never shy. Just meticulous is what I say. I don't think he's had as much time as he would have liked to get the car ultimately set up as he'd like, and I think if you follow him on some of his laps, you'll see that even when he's gone in on the same line, the car's just a bit edgy. Not quite as smooth as Mogard tends to drive, and I think that's part of the reason why when you look at his lap times they're a little bit inconsistent.
And of course that comes down in some ways to the new tyre compound that iRacing has brought here to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Max Delorco still out on the racetrack. His last time a 1 minute 8.458. Fulvio Barazini's last lap time was a 1 minute 8.582. Now, essentially what Delorco is doing right now on low fuel, he's able to eke out a bit of a gap over some of his competitors. He might now come out ahead of Jeremy Bootloop in that 6th position. And we'll keep an eye on Max Delorco. He's surely got to be within the next 2 or 3 laps. Coming out of turn number 11 once again, the number 52, Faraja Ojura racing car of Max Delorco. He's holding it all the way down. In fact, he stays out for another... Max Delorco, we said how he was dropping like a fire at the start of this race, Ben, and that is the reason why. Because, quite simply, he's gone about 5 laps longer than anyone else in this race.
This is helping him. He does not have to take that much fuel at the pit stop. And he's probably going to jump some people, to be completely honest. These guys, some people do have traffic. But it does look like you can see the gap between 3rd and 4th. Moga, Philo and Stephen Michaels now closing up. He's just about in the draft. As they come up to the line of bricks now, we'll check the times for you. Moga Philo 108.960 to Stephen Michaels a 108.638. When do you guys reckon he's going to get it done? This lap? Next lap?
3 laps time. 3 laps time. Because I think that for Michaels, he's going to have to get a line out of turn number 11. That's what hurt him the last time around. To run through your top 10, it's Max Delorco right now, scored as your race leader. He hasn't yet pitted. Fulvio Barazini 2nd, Mo Garfield in 3rd, Michaels 4th, Egger 5th, Bootloop 6th, Lopez 7th, the Corpse in 8th, Watida in 9th, and Fabio De Carmo rounds out your top 10. And again, Max Delorco stays out. He's going to do 48 laps in that 1 tank of fuel. Ben alluded to it perfectly. Every single lap he stays out, he's going to have to take less fuel in his box. Max Delorco right now is knocking on the door for a top 5 finish in this race. Stephen Michaels, meanwhile, battle for 3rd and 4th positions on the racetrack right now. It will be 2nd and 3rd overall. The gap between those 2 drivers right now, it is a total of about 0.7 seconds on the racetrack. Again, Michaels will get the draft down the yard of bricks. He's in draft range now. You'll see immediately he closes up 193 miles an hour. He's not going to get any faster than that. Mo Garfield ahead of him doing 189 miles an hour. Michaels closed that gap up. A 1 minute 8.374 for Michaels last time by 1 minute 8.6 for Mo Garfield as they came past into turn number 1. Dan, that battle for 2nd position, it's on.
It is on. We'll battle for third at the moment between Mogarfilo and Stephen Michael. We said before Max Dell'Orco, but Max Dell'Orco is only about a tenth quicker on the last lap than Fulvio Barazini. I think Dell'Orco's main, we should try and get that battle really between Mogarfilo and Stephen Michaels. So that'd be Matthias Ager around that sort of area. But Stephen Michaels, he was very rapid before his pit stop right on the tail here of Mogarfilo. And if he can get the draft, we should see him poke up to the inside and at least try to make the move going into turn 1, which will put him back on the podium.
Working ourselves right now onto lap 50.
He's going to get it done. I'm just going to comment here quickly. Mogarfilo did not get a good run out of turn number 12, I believe. Yep, here he goes. He's closing the gap. Stephen Michaels in the draft of Mogarfilo. Filo goes to the inside defending. So he's going to have to go the long way around, side by side, down into turn 1, past the pit exit. Michaels with the nose in front, out-braking him. Has he out-broken himself? No, made the job done. Good move.
Perfect.
P3.
And in the meantime, Max Dell'Orco still hasn't come into the pits, Will.
Yeah, and that is 50 laps is what we expect to be the absolute limit. He's working himself into turn number 11 again. He's got 3 cars ahead of him, which will cause some traffic on the next lap. So, from a strategic point of view, now might be a good time to come in anyway. We also think he's on fumes, and indeed he is coming onto pit road, this time by from the race lead. Max Dell'Orco led a number of laps here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the longest guy to pit. Now he comes down 55 miles an hour on pit road. He will likely come out in about the 5th, 6th position on the racetrack. And we're going to keep an eye out, actually, on Matthias Ager in the 8th car to see exactly where he's going to come around. Meanwhile, Dell'Orco, 55 miles an hour. It's going to be a clear pit entry, a clear pit exit for him. He's going to have to take 4 fresh tyres, top up with race gas, into his pit box. He almost actually hits the wall as he comes down. The attenuator wall there on the inside of pit road. Tyres on, tyres back down there, taking fuel, out he comes. Where is Matthias Ager in that 8 car? Of course, he's doing 200 something miles an hour. He is past, and Jeremy Bootloop is just gone past as well. Daniel Lopez is not going to come out ahead of Max Dell'Orco. Dell'Orco comes out in the 6th position on the racetrack side. Ben, it didn't work out perfectly for him, but he's been able to get himself back into contention for top 5 because he's not that far behind Jeremy Bootloop. Only about 2 seconds on the racetrack. Fresher tyres, 2 seconds behind. It can still happen.
I think he's going to get it done. 22 laps to go. He's going to kill it. I hope he gets right up there. You know what? I actually reckon he might be able to catch Mogarfilo. As we heard from Andy earlier, the car is unpredictable for all the Radicals driver. So hopefully we can see a great battle emerging in the last 23 laps here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
We're just thinking about Stephen Michaels as well. If he can close up half a second a lap, he has a chance of just about catching Fulvio Barazini. Barazini cannot put a foot wrong down. Of course, this is going to be the biggest win of his sim racing career. There's 12.5 seconds of gap right now between Barazini and Michaels. Last time by, Michaels did about, in fact, just a little bit slower than Barazini there. But Barazini, that pressure's got to start getting to him very, very soon.
Get to him soon, but he's got about 12.5 seconds, and while Michaels is lapping at a similar pace, it does take the pressure off Barazini ever so slightly, but the fact that Michaels has brought that gap down from what it was earlier, Barazini will know that Michaels was very, very quick on a light fuel load, so as they come towards the end of the race, will we see Michaels maybe have that exact same burst of pace, in which case Barazini may want to start getting his foot down and trying to keep that gap as high as possible.
And Barazini's going to get a little bit of help here as he comes past the Isle of Bricks once again and working himself on lap number 52 of 73 at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. He's going to get that draft from Pablo Lopez, I believe. He's up to 193 miles an hour as fast as we see these cars go. And Michaels, as he comes down into turn number 13, he doesn't get any draft help there because Xiao Pino just moves out of the way from him. And it's hard to say that Michaels put on a sterling drive. He's lost time though. He loses half a second at last lap there, Ben. That's horrible.
Yeah. I think he's starting to understand now that the win is out of the reach just about. You're going to have to get half a second a lap. Half a second a lap. Yeah, it doesn't seem like much, but consistently half a second a lap, every lap, then you've got to, that's only catching him. Then you've got to pass him. It's a whole nother story. I think he's starting to understand that maybe he should just relax and try and get a little break from Mogarfilo. But someone who's not even a word, but who's just gone up in the timing board and lit up the timing screens for me at the moment is Matthias Ager. in position number 4. We haven't spoke much of him all day, but top 5 position. It's a great drive.
And we also think that Mogar Philo has a cone stuck underneath his nose at this point in time, which is one of the reasons why he's falling back pretty dramatically right now. To run through the biggest gainers in this race since it started, you have up 5 positions, Stephen Michaels, Matthias Egger, Joey Bootsleep up 5 positions, Daniel Lopez up 15 positions, Satan Lava into the top 10 on that INX racing car, up 13 positions on the racetrack. Then you have Cornet, Sturgis, Lopez up at least 15 positions each. Hugh Abe, he's lost 13 positions. He's gained 5 back since the start of this race, but that 61 car struggling for him right now. Wes Richards up 12 positions, and Xiao Pino up 8 positions as well. And then we come down to the Tyrese.
Sorry, Cornet's up 17 positions.
Yeah, pretty impressive, you have to say that, for Ben Cornet right now. And if you have a look at the fastest laps of the race as well, it's still Stephen Michaels with the fastest lap of the race. Then Fulvio Barrazzini, then Mogar Philo. They're the 3 fastest guys in that order on the racetrack. However, Philo's been able to stick behind Michaels at this point in time. Last time, Philo's only a couple of tenths of a second slower than Stephen Michaels. That gap right now between Fulvio Barrazzini and Stephen Michaels is a total of 12.8 seconds on the racetrack, with Mogar Philo just about half a second behind. Working ourselves onto lap number 15 here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We'll be right back after this message from our friends over at iRacing.
Simulated racing can be awesome, but it can also be kind of a free-for-all. Interestingly, auto racing faced the same problem in its earlier days. Whether it was on the back roads, the beaches, or the city streets, the racing was fun. But there was always a certain level of chaos and danger, until some folks came along and put some order to all of this. Stuff like official racetracks, regulations about weight and equipment, and enforcement of standards. That's what gave us high-speed excitement, fast-paced action, and photo finishes. That's when racing became racing. The guys over at iRacing.com have made the same transformation in the world of sim racing. Sure, they've got the most accurate tracks and realistic cars out there, but that's just the start. See, iRacing analyzes the performance and results of each driver in every race, so you can be sure you're always placed in races where the competition will be tight, and that those reckless drivers who ruin it for us all are kept in the pits. Not to mention that with over 45,000 active members already in their vast community, you can find races day and night, so you can always get in on the action. You can even join a league of your favorite series, and since updates are always automatic, you don't have to worry about software and can focus on the track. Zip up your fire suit and check out iRacing.com.
So welcome back to the 11th round of the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series from the Brickyard, Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Vincent along with Ben Rothberg and Dan Blake as we continue our coverage of this race, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. 2.61 miles in length, 13 corners. Track temperature right now 78 degrees Fahrenheit. There's no wind at all, and we have humidity of 55% on the racetrack. Partially cloudy conditions. I would like to give a big shout out to our friends over at Team Redline for World Championship Tipping. Head over to teamredline.co.uk/tipping and pick who you think is going to finish in the top 3 positions every single race, as well as returning iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series champion Gregor Hutu. Also to our friends over at ETV for their coverage, and also to our friends over at iRacing. Head over to iRacing.com right now, get yourself half price off your first 3 months of membership if you're a new member. If you're an existing member, get yourself 1 year free when you sign up to a new 1-year subscription. $99 for 2 years of iRacing? I'll say yes to that. Meanwhile, Fulvio Barrazzini, your race leader, a 13.1 second gap over Stephen Michaels, and Ben, it looks as though that Michaels is giving up the ghost for the time being.
As I said earlier, I knew that Michaels was going to just relax now. It was too big of a gap that he could close up. Like, yeah, if Barrazzini makes a mistake, I'm sure Stephen Michaels will go for it. I know he's a really young bloke, and he's a really nice guy, Stephen Michaels, and he deserves a really good result. And I think a second place he'll be happy with, especially on home turf.
And of course, the biggest stories of the day are the fact that the top 2 drivers in both Team My3ID and Team Redline have decided not to make that trip over to Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Gregor Hutu, Atsi Kirchhoff, who we spoke to earlier on, Hugo Louise and Martin Kroenke not racing here today. As I say, we talked to Andy Kirkus a little bit earlier on. We're going to talk very quickly to Team Redline's principal, Dom Duhan, who might be able to shed a little bit more light onto the situation. Dom, any particular reason why Hutu and Atsi aren't racing today?
Well, I think, I think Atsi kind of explained it. It's a bit of a combination between the track, the physics, and the fact that, it is summer. You guys will enjoy it. And if, Hugo and Martin weren't racing, that certainly takes the heat off a bit and means that the guys could actually enjoy it, because just the life of a DWC driver it is work. It's almost a job doing this. So you need to be fully focused. You need to spend a lot of time, and it's always nice to have a day off on the day job.
What do you mean it's summer? I'm sitting here with the heater on.
That's because you're Australian and you're in the other part of the world. But you have to say right now, for one of your drivers, Ben Cornett, in that number 14 car, one of his best finishes of the season, if it was to finish right now, 11th position. A little bit out of the way of being able to get himself a top 10. He scored 1 minute behind your race leader. But for Cornett, we talked about this in Ice Lounge actually a couple of months ago. It's been a tough season for him, the fact that he's not been able to get the seat time. He's had so many different things going on, but this might just about help him get into that top 25.
I think that's the only reason he's racing at the moment, until he feels competitive again. But certainly, if he did put in practice, he'd be up there. He's definitely good enough to do that. But it is a case of committing to the series, or just making sure that you stay in the top 25 for next season.
All went wrong, however, for Luke McLean down into turn number 1, essentially putting him out of the race. And unfortunately, Internet, he just locked up his brakes, I believe, down into turn number 1, which took out himself and Hugh Abe, which actually would have been a great three-way battle for the race lead.
Yeah, really disappointing. I know Luke would be disappointed. I'm sure he was kind of unsighted, and there was a lot of moving around from everyone at the front there, so he probably just missed marker maybe, or wasn't expecting Yuho to break that early. But a missed opportunity, I think, for Luke, because certainly in practice he's shown that his pace definitely wasn't reflected in qualifying, and certainly in race he's usually a pretty strong competitor, so he will rue the fact that he's done that. Certainly bounce back the next race.
Well, we'll talk to you a little bit later on. Of course, we've got the iRacing All-Star race taking place in just 1 week's time. We'll talk to you a little bit later on after this race. But meanwhile, we're going to turn our attention over to Hugh Abe, as he's closing up to the rear of Andrew Zaclom in the battle for the 14th position on the racetrack dam. And Abe is trying to be determined to get himself back into a top 10 finish. Now, there's a thing with pro drivers when they race up into the WCS, because of the fact that they've got to make sure that they keep their noses clean. And you have to say that Internet in turn number 1, in no way, shape or form, Hugh Abe's fault at all. But he's wanting to get himself as high up in positions as possible, just in case he can race the rest of the season and get himself some more points.
Yeah, very determined drive from Yuho Abe after the first corner incident. He's kept going and trying to get as high a position as possible. Going up to 15, but also Mateus Eggers passed Mogar Filo, I believe, for 3rd place. I don't know if you guys know any more about that.
Yeah, it's down in turn 6 and 7, Mogar Filo, when it looks as though he had a slowdown penalty or something happened to him. Race control said he had slowed down. He just went offline and allowed Mateus to go past Ben.
Oh, I think it's a Filo. Filo's got a bit of an issue with he's hit a cone early in the race, and I think it's damaged either the under tray or some part of the car, and he is going a little bit slower. I think it might have just been out of respect that he's just let Mateus Egger go.
So Filo is now down into the 4th position, Egger up into 3rd, and this is to say the most varied podium we've had all season long. Fulvio Balazini in that Triple M car leading the way. Stephen Michaels in the Twister Racing car sat in the 2nd position. Iron Racing's Mateus Egger in the 3rd position. Then you have 2 Radicals drivers scored 4th and 5th in Mogar Filo and Jeremy Bootley respectively. If you take away the fact that, of course, we are missing the top 2-3 drivers from the series at the same time, Ben, this is the most interesting race we've had. Battles all the way from first through to the end of the field.
Yeah, it is a great race. I'm just going to quickly jump to Daniel Lopez on Jeremy Bootley for position 5, going down into turn 1 now. Down the inside, Bootley would have noticed he's down there, out late braking on Daniel Lopez, got the car turned in and position done.
So up into 5th position there for Daniel Lopez, who is not the brother of Pablo for any new viewers to the World Championship Series. However, he's now up into the 5th position. So now we have 5 different cars represented in the top 5 positions, Dan.
Yeah, Daniel Lopez as well, not long ago, was in 7th position behind Max Delorco, so he's definitely going a late charge in those races, Daniel Lopez, but I think the battles across the field have sort of started to just ever so slightly stabilise a bit there. Stephen Michaels is, although last time he was 4/10 quicker than Fabio Barazini, I don't think he's going to be able to catch him up. It's got 12 seconds to catch up in 11 laps. The main battles on the field, I think, is going to be between you've got that battle maybe shaping up between Daniel Lopez and...
Look at Lopez go. In fact, Lopez, is going past some lap traffic there of Wes Richards. So I apologise for cutting you off there. I thought that was Bootleap. But Bootleap was actually about 2 seconds up the... No, Fido, sorry, about 2 seconds up the road from Daniel Lopez on the racetrack. So I apologise for cutting you off there, as I say. But a lot of lap traffic comes into play towards the end of this race, Ben. And because it's such a short racetrack with such high speeds, catch them in the front straight away, it's great. You actually gain a lot of time. Catch them in turn 4, 5, 6, you lose half a second. Game over.
Exactly right. It's all dependent. We're going to go back to the question of if one person has a little bit of extra wing on or if they don't. It depends what they want. If they want grip through the midsection, if they want grip on the, or if they want high speed. Sorry, I mistake myself just then. But I think Daniel Lopez has driven a great race and he's catching Mogarfilo like no tomorrow. He's got a little bit of lap traffic ahead of him now, but this draft may help him do an incredible lap time, probably a sub 108 I would think. He's got the draft of, can't see who that is at the moment. That's it, thank you. And he's then got Mogarfilo straight ahead of him, who's also got the draft of
a lapped car there, which is Abe there, yeah. And Fido pulls out to the outside line. He'll complete that pass, and Abe's put him a lap down to himself. Dion Verges has still got Lopez behind him. This is what I was talking about. Now Lopez is going to be stuck in traffic for pretty much this entire lap. It was a 1 minute 7.7 last time by for Daniel Lopez. One of the fastest laps we've seen all race long. However, now he's going to be stuck behind Dion Verges. And look, you can already see that he's struggling through turn number 6 on the racetrack. And I've got a feeling right now this might hurt Lopez. He's going to have to hope that at least Verges gets out of the way. But don't forget, he's battling with Abe as well. Verges does move out of the way. Abe will probably do the same. We've got a car slow on the inside line, which was Ricardo Castro-Edo, who looks like he might be out of the race there. Scored 4 laps down already in that number 66 machine. Really in a precarious position
in the wall from position 7.
Oh God,
Max Delorco's gone into the wall. Maybe a steering sort of failure. He's done it in a straight line. I don't know how he's managed to do that, but in a straight line the car has just gone straight and into the wall, and that's game over.
That is hugely disappointing for Delorco, who really drove strategy. He led laps in this race. He's one of those drivers that really could capitalise on points here today. But Max Delorco now out of the race from that 7th position on the racetrack. That 52 car, the Ferrari Azura racing car, he has got back going again. But I've got a feeling there might be some substantial damage to that race car. In fact, he's bringing the car down onto pit road. Right front suspension damage, we're getting the word from pit road, is the issue to his race car. And he is pretty much going to be game over for him. Less than 10 laps to go in this race. Barazini still your race leader. Michael still in 2nd. Egger still in 3rd. Fido still in 4th. Daniel Lopez in 5th. Jeremy Boosleep in 6th. And David Corpse, Martin Petito, Jason Lover, Max Delorco are your top 10 in this race. Let's talk about Barazini for a moment, Dan, because he really has dominated this race from the front. We thought that Fido might have been higher on fuel at the start of this race. In reality, Barazini was quite high in fuel himself, and a sterling job pulling away at the critical stages of the race as the fuel load went down and these tyres started wearing off. He's able to set the fastest lap for the race, except for Stephen Michaels.
It's been a very impressive drive here from Fabio Barazini. He's done this season. He's done well himself. He currently was 5th in the championship before they got underway today, and he may even go above Jake Sturgis depending on how Jake Sturgis does. But it's a good run here for Fabio Barazini, and as you said before, he's done extremely well with the fuel and that, and he's going to be a well-deserved victory for the Triple M driver.
Meanwhile, we're going to turn our attention over to Dion Verges and Abe. They're battling for position once again, 15th and 16th positions. They had to give that up for a little bit, Ben, as they're being passed by lap traffic. But Virgos is right behind you. Abe is also right behind Andrews and Tom. So a three-way battle for the 14th position now on the racetrack. And any one of those three can come out on top. And I know you, Abe, especially, wants to gain positions after a great start to this race that all went wrong very early on.
So I'm just quickly looking at position 4 for Mogo Filo. He's in a lot of trouble. He has Daniel Lopez for position 4, 5, and Jeremy Boudaloop has also caught up. These guys are all over each other with about 8 laps to go. Lopez in the draft. Filo's defending on the inside. Lopez on the outside. Doesn't have the top speed. He's trying to get there. He outbrake. They're still side by side. Down into turn 1. Filo still got the outside. He's done it. Filo has held on for that position for this battle's heating up.
And I tell you what, Lopez there as well was 2 miles an hour slower in the draft than we've seen many other cars doing. Lopez, his car is designed to work perfectly by himself. It's not designed to run in traffic there. And that's the reason why he couldn't breeze past Mogo Filo, as we've seen some other guys do. But Jeremy Boudaloop is right there in that battle as well. And I tell you what, if Lopez tries that outside move again and Boudaloop's right behind Dan, there is a good chance that Boudaloop can move up into the top 5 in this race. For a three-way battle with less than 10 laps to go, and it's anything to play for 4th, 5th and 6th.
That's just what I was about to say, Will. The slightest little mistake or wideness by one of those two drivers in front, and Jeremy Boudaloop in a prime position to try and overtake. But here we go, back down to the what is turn 1 and 2 on the oval, but last corner here, and Daniel Lopez has been trying to prime up Mogo Filo again for an opportunity. Filo goes down to the other side, so Daniel Lopez again will have to try and go around the outside and go side by side in the last lap. But I don't think he's quite going to
2 moves. There was 2 moves there by Mogo Filo. He went down to the inside and then he went to the outside once again. Now, in theory, Lopez wasn't quite close enough, but Filo, in my opinion, needs to be a little bit careful there, Ben, because if Lopez is close by, that could be classified as blocking.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I'm actually just looking at another battle now, just behind those guys for 7th and 8th.
Sorry,
David
Filo
DeCorps.
goes very sideways there, and that allows Lopez to close right up as they come onto the back straightaway, but carry on.
Looking at position 7 and 8 just going on, David DeCorps and Martin Patella. These guys are really close at the moment as they come through down onto the back straight. Patella's been catching David DeCorps as well. There's another battle going on, Ben Cornett, PJ Sturgis for a top 10 position. There's about a second separating those guys, but there's battles all over the shop. This race is going off.
But Lopez has got the best chance he's had, of course. As I said, he struggles a little bit in the draft, but he's catching up to Mogo Filo as they come past the yard of bricks once again. 68 laps going to be scored complete this time by. In fact, Lopez isn't even using the draft this time by, and that is going to be a difference maker because the Filo is all the way down to the inside line, 191 miles an hour for Lopez. He's going to try to cut under. It didn't quite work for him. Filo took 2 dabs into the corner, but Lopez on the wrong line to capitalise there. Boudaloop is falling back for the time being, but it's now a 2-car battle for 4th position on the racetrack. It does look as though, Dan, that Lopez isn't got the straight line speed to make it happen over that 27 car of Mogo Filo in that Radical Steel Series car. That's
going to be something Daniel Lopez may regret, but a 5th position finish for him would be great even still. But as I said before, it doesn't quite have that straight line, but I think he might have to try and get help from a back marker maybe or something, because he can't quite do it on his own. But we're looking also further back at the battle we talked about earlier between Andrew Slocum, Juha Abe and Dion Vergers. They're all very close together, 13th, 14th and 15th there. Abe looking right at the back here on Andrew Slocum, but he's got to be careful because it's the same situation as further up. Dion Vergers playing the Jeremy Boudaloop role there, where a slight mistake and he could be in for some gains as well.
So, working ourselves right now onto lap number 70 of 73. Less than 5 laps left to go. Fulvio Barozzini is still your race leader. Stephen Michaels in 2nd. Matthias Egger in 3rd. Mogo Filo in 4th. Daniel Lopez in 5th. And Jeremy Boudaloop goes wide. And that's going to cost him a ton of time there. As that actually allows David DeCorps to back up into him just a little bit. Boudaloop has lost out big time there. About a second in one corner then, Ben.
Yeah, didn't actually catch what happened there. I'll have to go back and have a look. But yeah, he has dropped off a fair bit. It looked like maybe he got a slowdown. Yeah, that's exactly right, Rise. The slowdown from the turn 1. He's misjudged the corner. And that's given it up with 3 or 4 laps to go. I don't think Boudaloop's going to get back there. So it's between Lopez and Filo. Lopez is very close coming out of the last corner now. It's going to be his best chance. He's going to have to get in that draft and sit there all the way down to turn 1.
Well, this is going to be an interesting battle as we come down into the last couple of laps of this race, but Lopez as close as he's ever been. You can see he's already going to go side by side with Mogar Philo as they come down into turn number 1. Who's going to get it? Lopez can be very late on the brakes, but Philo, oh so good as well. Lopez, they almost touch us, come down into turn number 1. Lopez will leave the inside line into 2, gets himself sideways on the curb. That gives Philo just another time to go going there, and that is great job there by Daniel Lopez.
Lopez just needs that run. He nearly got it this time. He's just got to get back there and do exactly what he did last time. He held back and he's just got to get there.
But right now it is Fulvio Barazini still scored as your race leader from Stephen Michaels. 12.7 seconds on the racetrack, Dan. And Barazini, we have to say, what a great drive Barazini's had in that Triple M car. But still, also, what a great drive there by Stephen Michaels in that second position as well. Michaels, let's not forget, did not start that race in second. He started it right down in the 7th position on the racetrack, up 5 positions. And Barazini, Michaels, and Egger, you have to say, really showing what these drivers can do.
Yeah, so this just shows that top drivers might be missing, but it's allowing people like Barazini, Michaels and Egger to come to the fore, and these are standout performances for those, and this will be a race that people will remember for a while, not just because of them missing, but because of the fact that other drivers have come. We've actually had quite an entertaining race here, and we've got Stephen Michaels and Matthias Egger running very well, and also, as I said before, Fulvio Barazini having one of his best runs for a long time, so if he does take the victory here, which is looking likely, I think it would be one of his, definitely his first victory of the season, and it really is going to be a proud moment for Fulvio Barazini and that Triple M team.
Philo's been given a life. Philo's been given a life. He has got Nat in the bag, just about. Daniel Lopez got a slow down at turn 1 and has dropped off about a second and a half now, but Bootaloop is all over the back of Lopez, just about. It's half a second, I thought he was all over, but anyway.
Because all chain tires, they work themselves on to turn 13. We know how good the Radical cars can be in a straight line. This could be a battle to the line, actually, for Jeremy Bootaloop. That gap is closing down. 193 miles an hour for Jeremy Bootaloop. 194 miles an hour. One of the fastest guys we see in a straight line. We know how good the Radical cars can be. This brings Bootaloop right up to the rear of Daniel Lopez. If he can keep right behind him, remembering the fact as well that Lopez has lapped traffic ahead of him on this final lap. That could be a run to the flag there for Bootaloop and Daniel Lopez. Meanwhile, Fulvio Barazini down to turn number 11 for the final time. He has had a great season. He dropped off in the middle of it for just a couple of races with some disappointing finishes. But now, that Triple M team are going to get their first ever win in the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series for Mortella Motor Mission. It's victory for Fulvio Barazini, his first in World Championship Series competition. Stephen Michaels will work himself out of turn number 13, getting his best finish in World Championship Series history as well. Matthias Egger for Orion Racing will come home in the 3rd position. Mogar Philo will come home in 3rd and 4th even. Daniel Lopez will come home in 5th, and Bootaloop wasn't able to do anything on that final lap, Ben. He comes home in the 6th position.
Still got a couple of battles going on as they come to the line. UAD was close. Not close enough to Dion Burgess for 14th position. But what a great race. These guys have gone at it for 73 laps and they're still going. Jake Sturgis, oh, it's a lap down, don't worry. No, I got too carried away. But what a race. Fabio Barazoni has just killed it.
Meanwhile, Ben Cornett and Sturgis, they are still going. They scored 1 lap down as they come on to the banking for the final time. Inex Racing's Pete Sturgis, we know how good he can be in a straight line. But no, of course they are scored 1 lap down. They're bringing their cars onto pit road. So I made a bet there and I made a bit of a mistake.
Everyone has finished.
Barazini, what a drive by him. Seriously, what a drive by him.
He killed it. I agree. He's just killed it. What a great drive. I would have loved to seen if Hutu and those top 4 boys were here, but so be it. And look at that, he's come out with a win. I'd be happy with it. It's a World Championship race. Round of applause to him because it's one of the hardest races, if not one of the hardest races and championships to win, and he's done it, and he's now can write his name in the record books.
And Dan, we lost a little bit of a battle there, because Luke McLean and Euro Abe could have been a three-way battle, perhaps even actually a four-way battle, because Michaels might have been able to keep with them if it was a four-car battle for the race lead. It could have been oh so different, but let's not take anything away from that number 10 car. Dario Franchitti has won 3 Indy 500s in that number 10 machine. Fulvio Barozzini takes that number 10 to Victory Road at Indy.
Yeah, very well done from Fulvio, and he adds himself to an illustrious name of winners of the iRacing World Grand Prix Series. Also, we had a good battle as well between Mo Garfido, Daniel Lopez and Jeremy Butalip as well. So there was a very, very good battle towards the end of the race, and I think this has probably one of the best races of the year all in all.
Let's run through our top 20. We'll take a break. We'll come back. We'll dissect everything that happened in this race. Your race winner, Fulvio Barozzini, in a time of 1 hour and 24 minutes. Stephen Michaels, 12 seconds behind him. Mathis Egger in third. Mo Garfido, fourth. Daniel Lopez, fifth. Jeremy Butalip in the sixth position. David Corps, Mark Patilla, Jason Lover, and Ben Cornett. They round out your top 10. The first top 10 finish for Ben Cornett this season. PJ Sturgis in 11th. Pablo Lopez in 12th. What a drive by him. Anderson Klum in 13th. Dion Verges 14th. Hugh Ape in 15th position. Alex Simpson in 16th. Marcus Caton, Jorn Jans, Thiago Alfaro, and Jake Sturgis. They are your top 10. Gonna step aside for just 1 minute. We'll be right back with post-race reactions from the GlacierTV crew and from drivers and from team managers after this short message from our sponsors, iRacing.
Simulated racing can be awesome, but it can also be kind of a free-for-all. Interestingly, auto racing faced the same problem in its earlier days. Whether it was on the back roads, the beaches, or the city streets, the racing was fun. But there was always a certain level of chaos and danger, until some folks came along and put some order to all of this. Stuff like official racetracks, regulations about weight and equipment, and enforcement of standards. That's what gave us high-speed excitement, fast-paced action, and photo finishes. That's when racing became racing. The guys over at iRacing.com have made the same transformation in the world of sim racing. Sure, they've got the most accurate tracks and realistic cars out there, but that's just the start. See, iRacing analyzes the performance and results of each driver in every race, so you can be sure you're always placed in races where the competition will be tight, and that those reckless drivers who ruin it for us all are kept in the pits. Not to mention that with over 45,000 active members already in their vast community, you can find races day and night, so you can always get in on the action. You can even join a league of your favorite series. And since updates are always automatic, you don't have to worry about software and can focus on the track. Zip up your fire suit and check out iRacing.com.
Back to the GlacierTV post-race show here, live, surprisingly enough, on GlacierTV, where Fulvio Barozzini takes his first victory in the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series. Stephen Michaels and Mathis Egger both post their best finish in the WCS. Mo Garfido coming home in 4th, and Daniel Lopez rounding out your top 5. 5 different teams represented by 5 different drivers in the top 5. Ben, arguably, this is what will be one of the best races we've seen this season in the World Championship Series.
I do completely agree. Like, it really defines a series that we don't need those top runners. As much as I love having Gregor Hutu and Hugo Louis and Artie Kirchhoff and all the other boys in and running and a full WCS field, that was a cracking race. It's probably one of the best ones I've ever commentated, to be completely honest.
And say, I'm slightly disappointed, Dan, in the fact that we lost McLean so early, we lost Abe so early, because that really could have been a battle for the ages. All of those guys, we know they all run on high 7th gears, so they all can make passes. I think Barozzini, in some ways, he was gifted by the fact that there was melee behind him, was able to pull out to the early lead, the fact that Noel could be within draft range at the end of lap number 1. But at the same time, that Triple M car, that number 10 machine, he got the job done. And importantly, this is the biggest win of his sim racing career.
Yeah, not many people can turn around and say they've won a race in the iRacing World Grand Prix Series. But as you were saying before, Will, about McLean, I think it was disappointing that we lost McLean because he could have been another element to some great battling. But overall, I think, as we said, as Ben said before, it shows that as much as we want to see the likes of Gregor Hutto and Hugo Louis, that they're not indispensable as such. The rest of the drivers on the field can put such a good race, and also it's good to see that all the different teams stay close together. There's not one team who's running away with it like you could see sometimes in real Formula 1. In this series, all the teams have got just as good of a chance as any others of getting the victory, and it's very well done to Triple M who took today's victory.
We had a Triple M car first position, Twister Racing car second position, Orion Racing in third, then we had Radical Steel Series in fourth, and then Forage Jura Racing in the fifth position. Ben, it really does show that there are times when anyone can stake their claim in the WCS. And I mean, you had, a second Orion car, a second Radicals car, a second Orion car, and an IronX car and a Redline car in the top 10. Most diverse team thread we've ever had.
Yeah, like we do have. Normally, we have Redline, 3RD, 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 maybe a Triple M car in there somewhere, and an Orion car, and a 4Racer, and like
An IronX.
Yeah, exactly. We don't normally go too much detail about the team's championship at the moment. Hopefully, something happens within the future that we do, but the team's champion. I can't wait to see the drivers' championship coming out of this race.
And in fact, we have got your race victory and your winner here from the £11 of the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series. The first win for an Italian driver. 2 Italians on the podium, Fulvio Barosini, Bellissimo. Congratulations.
Well, thank you. Can you hear me? Yeah?
We can hear you.
Gotcha.
Well, what to say? It's unbelievable. Really. It all started from qualifying, of course. I managed to nail a nearly perfect lap. I think it was my personal best. So from that I was quite in a different feeling rather than when there is Hugo and Gregor and Etsy on the grid. I had no one ahead of me, and of course I did a poor start. I kind of expected that because my first gear was very long, and I guess all the other guys had the same first gear. I wasn't used to it, and I did a terrible start. My rear wheels were spinning, and the revs dropped. So I basically lost 2 places in the first 20 meters. Then there was a scary moment because I already decided to go wide in the first turn and let the other 2 guys, Juho and Luke, by on the inside. Then I saw a total mess in my mirrors, and I was very, very lucky to escape the crash. From that I was in total control, and I mean, I had also only to think about myself, my pace, no mistakes, and everything went perfect from them.
We'll talk about your qualifying lap first, because it came on your final lap of the run. You were able, with some provisional pole position, then you were able to snatch that away in the dying moments of qualifying. Just how perfect of a lap was that for you?
I really don't know, because I had no reference lap times. I didn't really know where the other were. I'm used not to look at the standings while doing qualifying and think only about myself. I knew my first lap time wasn't perfect. I had some rough lines, not really perfect. So I just started the second lap with the reference over my previous lap time. I immediately, after the first turn, so I was like 2 tenths or similar lower than the lap time, and I just kept calm all through the lap time, and I think it was my best I've done, considering all my practice and the little practice I've done, because I think everybody of us started practicing just three days before the race.
And just how nervous were you those last 20 laps after you made your pit stop and you knew You had a 14, 15 second advantage, and you just had to bring that car home. Just how terrifying was it for you?
Well, the only terrifying moments were every single lap at the first turn. You know, the infamous cones. Now that they are movable, you were finding in the middle of the track, flying every time you had a car ahead. You really didn't know where the cones could be, and everybody knew that if you catch one of those cones under your car, your race is basically over, because the least thing you can have is a reduced top speed or a terrible car handling, you know. So for the rest of the lap, I was just in control. I never pushed except for maybe 3 or 4 laps all through the race. But the first turn, man, it was unbelievable.
And how does it feel to be the first Italian ever to win an iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series race?
Well, I'm extremely happy, you know. It's a kind of bittersweet feeling, because there was no one of the top 3 in the standings, but I don't know if it's something that you say also in America, but we say that the absent guys are always wrong, you know. So I praise all the guys that attended the race, and I can say nothing about who missed this one. So basically, I won this race. I'm happy for Matthias, because he also is on the podium. So a great day for Italian sim racing, and that's it. I just thank my team, Mortadella Motor Mission, and my manager Stefano, because he's an awesome man, and long live Mortadella.
And finally, a word in Italian for your friends.
Ciao ragazzi, spero che vi siate divertiti, e che vi devo dire, speriamo di vincere la prossima con anche tutti gli altri. Ciao ciao.
Fulvio Barosini there, taking his first victory in the World Championship Grand Prix Series. The first victory ever for an Italian driver, and 2 Italians on the podium, with Matthias Egger coming home in the 3rd position. Matthias, a great drive by you. You started that race down in the 12th position, moved your way up into 3rd position. At one point, had yourself a little bit of battle with Fabio Di Carlo, but came out on top.
Oh, yes, it was simply great. In 2 years, this is my first podium ever, so I'm so happy. I can't do better than this. This was just perfect for my abilities.
As I say, a great race for you. 2 Italians on the podium here today. How much national pride is there, you know, being able to really dominate the World Championship Series race here today?
Yes, indeed it's a great day for us, and congratulations to Fulvio. Bravo Fulvio. Let's keep going. Nothing else.
Matthias Egger there. We do apologise. A little bit of sound issues coming through there on our stream, but saying congratulations to Fulvio for his victory. Looking forward to Italians doing well once again in the World Championship Grand Prix Series. Still got Dan Blake, Ben Rothberg, and Andy Kay here. Andy, I'm going to bring you into this conversation, because I know that Mo Goffida can be a little bit shy. Same with Jeremy Bouteloup, but 4th and 6th position for your drivers. And just a comment in the 13th position as well. Unfortunately, you had one of you guys out in Paul Lillbrink very early on, but overall, a good day for the Radicals.
Yeah, a great day for Radicals. Some really good racing, I have to say. You know, fantastic result for Fulvio. Drove really well right from the start. It's great to not only get a pole in the qualifier, but also to sort of capitalise on that and come through with the overall win. So congratulations to him. But yeah, great job by the Radicals team. I think it was a brilliant race overall. Great fun to watch, and shame for Paul, but overall a really fun race.
And as far as, you know, the race overall went, of course we were missing that star power. We say star power in the fact that we were missing Hutu, we were missing Louise, we were missing Kirchhoff, we were missing Kroenke, but still we had a great race here today. And the fact that we all know that Louise and Hutu setups, they're all designed to work by themselves and not in traffic. What we saw in retaliation today was a race where all the way through the field, guys were passing each other. And I think this is the most passes for the top 5 we've seen in a WTS race in history.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the things, you know, with the real F1 and certainly by watching this series, the more competitive it is with everybody, the more exciting the races are, and certainly saw that today. Right from really position 1 right at the start, it was close after the mishap by Luke, and right the way through the race, there's some brilliant battling and some brilliant overtakes.
We're just having a look at the onboard start from Stephen Michaels. What a crazy start by him. How he got through that, we have no idea. But Andy, we're going to turn our attention for 1 week's time for the iRacing.com All-Star Race, which is the top 20 NASCAR drivers, the top 20 World Championship Series drivers, and a couple of wild cards as well. I believe that Paycheck is one of those drivers who has been granted a wild card for this race. Going to be streamed by our friends over at PSR-TV. You'll be glad to know that I'm doing commentary, so you have to deal with me once again. But it's going to be an interesting race, and it's a chance to see how the guys work on opposite disciplines.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it also depends on how well some of the guys that don't often drive oval series get a chance to be helped in some way to have a setup that works for them. I mean, obviously the favourites are going to be, in my opinion, Ray Alfalo and Jake Sturgis, 2 drivers which drive in or have driven in both series of the DWC and are both incredibly competitive in those. But you know, don't write off people like Hugo and Gregory in those 2. I mean, they're both superb drivers, and likewise Pablo loves his oval as well, so don't write off Pablo in that series.
We saw on the iRacing.com. Sorry, we saw on the iRacing.com World Cup just how good that Louise could be, how good Huso can be on an oval in an NASCAR. We don't yet know what the car track combinations are. You'll find that out again. I say next Saturday. Start time for that will be 2 PM Eastern, 7 PM GMT, live with our friends over at PSR-TV. Before we go, Ben, driver of the race.
Barazoni.
Dan?
I think I could give Barazoni as well, but definitely Mateus Eger deserves a mention as well. Fantastic race from him.
Andy?
Barazoni, without a doubt. Pole on the qualifier and took it to a win. Brilliant.
And for myself, I'm going to actually give it split between the top 3. Barazini, Michaels and Eger. 3 drivers who somehow find a way to get podium. Each of them had it tough. Barazini had to be tough at the start. He was always going to come home out of turn 1 in 3rd position. Was lucky, but still had to pull away from Philo. Stephen Michaels drove the field, as did Mateus Eger. What we learned today at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway is that no matter who the drivers are, there's always going to be a great race in the WCS. We expect Husu, Louise and Kirchhoff to be back in 2 weeks' time as the World Championship Grand Prix Series heads over to round number 12, which will be at Twin Ring Motegi. We'll be back for that in 2 weeks' time. In 1 week's time, of course, we have the iRacing.com All-Star Race on PSR-TV. Our good friends over there will be providing you with coverage. Later on today on Glacier, we'll have ourselves Skip Barbers at Watkins Glen. Then tomorrow, the ISOWC Kentucky 400 as the road to the ISOWC Indianapolis 500 kicks itself into high gear. For myself, Will Vincent, from Ben Rothberg, Dan Blake, Andy Kay, Joni Bäckman, we'll see you all next time. What a great race we've had here today in Indianapolis. And bellissimo to Fulvio Barazini.